He's just playing his favorite game when he suddenly gets sucked inside it. He wakes up in the body of some extra NPC, and when he looks in the mirror, he can't help but cry in despair. You see, he ended up in the body of Evan Desheaton, a pitiful side character doomed to die no matter what. He's tried to save Evan for years now, and nothing ever worked. Evan died every single time in all possible ways. Once he was crushed by a monster. Another time he died from poison. Once he simply slipped and died. On another day, a maid stabbed him after he broke up with her. Then 10 more girls tried to kill him after he hurt their feelings. And finally, he even died saving the game's protagonist during the battle with the final boss. That time, he survived the longest. So at least, there's some hope that maybe, just maybe, he can make it this time. But then comes the big question. Where does he even begin? That is when he sets his first goal, to figure out how to be the kind of extra who actually lives. Knights train tirelessly to perfect their sword skills, and magicians focus on casting powerful spells. Evan figures the answer is simple: level up. When the level goes up, magicians get more mana to cast stronger spells, while warriors become tougher, faster, and harder to beat. When Mabel hears that, she wonders if our boy is thinking of stepping into a dungeon already. She yells at him as he tries to brush it off. She scolds him seriously, saying he should not even joke about such things since dungeons are packed with terrifying monsters. Being someone from a noble family, he will be expected to enter one eventually, once he becomes an adult. Until then, she wants him to focus on getting proper training and becoming stronger. She makes it clear that she is not going to let him go anytime soon. He tries to calm her down by agreeing with her as she finally takes her leave. He had purposely said it loud enough for her to hear, just to see how she would react. The thing is, our protagonist has already lived as himself in this world for 9 years now, and he knows the people of this world are under a serious misunderstanding. They believe the only way to level up is by going into dungeons. Although there is some truth to that, clearing dungeon floors does grant blessings that help people grow stronger. Eventually, the kingdom had to take control by assigning nobles to manage dungeons, which led to the creation of a dungeon city. That city is now under the control of none other than his father, Marquis Solane D. Sheaton. Clearing dungeons can indeed raise the level, but Evan knows that there are other ways to become stronger, if the methods he learned while playing are used. Mabel hears him and curiously wonders what he means. He smiles gently and reassures her not to worry. He knows he is seen as a minor character in Demon War, yet the truth is that he is one of the most charming ones. He adds that sadly, he will not be smiling much anymore, and it is because he knows what is coming. That very smile could cause major problems in the future. Even a casual grin can bring danger, and he does not want to trigger any death flags. Pushing those thoughts aside, he focuses on what matters. Evan has just confirmed how people here see demons, and now he only needs to find a way to survive. The first step of many immortality projects is leveling up. So, he turns to Mabel and asks when his birthday is. She replies that it is coming up next week. He then instructs her to let his father know he wants to meet him before then, because he cannot wait any longer. To begin his plan, he needs something specific from the Marquis, the Mirasol's necklace. It was the first artifact discovered inside the Sheridan dungeon, and was passed down to their family. In the game, the only way to get the necklace was to form a pact with Evan, and the main problem is that there was a specific event that activates it. He remembers the event very well. When our boy tried to activate the Mirasol's necklace, he poured in mana and cast a spell, and that's when things went sideways. Out of nowhere, thousands of slimes appeared and swarmed the area. They were all weak, level 1 slimes, but he did not know how to stop them from appearing. He fought them off as best he could, but eventually, the scene of Evan being swallowed by slimes became one of the most infamous moments in the game's history. At that moment, he noticed something important. While playing as the main character, he killed one of those slimes to protect Evan, and the game displayed a message that he had gained 1 experience point. In that moment, he realizes that the slimes summoned by the necklace actually gave experience points. It's different from the levels gained by clearing dungeon floors. The experience would raise their very existence. The world of games works in a way where every single action gives some sort of outcome. In that world, people call it a gaming experience. Whether someone fights monsters or spends time training, they gain experience by repeating the same actions again and again. The people living in that world think of this as just getting better at the task, like building a skill. But the truth is, they have misunderstood it completely. What is really happening is that they are leveling up their existence, not just improving skills. When Evan de Sheraton was still a player, he noticed this detail. Alongside the levels he gained in dungeons, he could also observe his existence levels growing. Our boy knew that this was surely possible. Similar to dungeon levels, existence levels don't shoot up rapidly. Their growth is slow, steady, and often depends heavily on a person's natural abilities or talent. But existence levels come with one unique thing: they have no upper limit. That makes them very different from dungeon levels. Just then, Mabel comes over and interrupts his thoughts. She informs him that his father is waiting and the headmaid will be escorting him. Thanks to his constant efforts in the game, the protagonist has managed to gain valuable experience over time. Because of the existence levels he earned from holding the title of a laborer, even someone weak and feeble was able to grow stronger. Of course, if he actually went into a dungeon, things would still go badly. He would probably get sliced in half and not make it out alive. Normally, a laborer hunts to earn experience, but he is now too young for that kind of danger. Still, he wonders if there are monsters weak enough that even a child can defeat them. He thinks about summoning extremely weak slimes and then killing them for experience. Mirasol's necklace uses 1 MP to summon a level 1 slime. In the game, a level 1 character usually starts off with 100 HP and 100 MP. So by that logic, Evan should be able to summon around 100 slimes. Slimes offer a tiny amount of experience, almost nothing, but he figures that he can do it if he starts early. They arrive at the Marquise's office. After receiving permission to enter, he steps in. The second son knows his role as the Marquise's child and decides to play it properly to get Mirasol's necklace. He tells his father that he wants his birthday gift a little earlier than usual. The Marquis questions why he is in such a rush. Evan insists that he saw a necklace earlier and he really wants it. The Marquis is surprised. He did not expect his son to request jewelry instead of a sword or a pet. Hearing that the request is for Mirasol's necklace, he is clearly shocked. The Marquis explains that the necklace is actually a family heirloom. It's not something he can just hand over lightly. The protagonist unleashes his strongest move, pleading with puppy eyes. That works, and convinces the Marquis. On one hand, there is his son's request, while on the other, even though the necklace does not seem to hold any real power, it's still a treasured heirloom. Then he recalls that artifacts are said to choose their own owners, and guesses that Mirasol's necklace has chosen him. So, he finally agrees and decides to give the necklace as a birthday present. In that moment, Evan leaps forward to hug his father. Marquis warns him that there is a limit to how many artifacts a person can equip. He informs that there are magical artifacts out there such as rings, swords, and necklaces, but no matter where the artifact is worn, a person can only equip 5 at once. That is the maximum amount of power their body can handle. He wants his son to know that once he grows older and finds other powerful artifacts, he adds that Evan must return Mirasol's necklace to its rightful place in storage, since it is still a part of their family's legacy. Our protagonist is only planning to return it after he levels up enough. He knows he won't be able to keep farming experience from slimes forever. Our boy promises to return it later. Now, he is more concerned about how he is supposed to track his level. He knows he needs something like a status window to check his existence level and experience. Still, for now, he is glad that he got his hands on Mirasol's necklace. When he gets back to his room, he checks the necklace closely. A memory hits him of the time he died after being eaten by slimes. He reminds himself that the Evan in the game made a critical mistake and activated the artifact before bringing it under control. That's what caused it to go out of control, but he is not the same Evan. He knows the proper way to resist an artifact's control, how to summon slimes and what to watch out for. He also remembers the chant, a chant that ended his life in the game. This time though, he knows it will be different. Our boy feels a connection between Mirasol's necklace and himself. As he lets the flow of mana move into his hand, a slime appears in his palm. Despite its appearance, the slime attacks. Our boy notices that the level 1 slimes only inflict very weak poison damage on him. He figures they would only become dangerous if they came at him in overwhelming numbers. He reminds himself he is no longer the same person as before as he grips the slime in his hand and squeezes it hard. He remembers from the game that continuous damage causes a character to fall into a special state known as critical condition. When someone is in that state, there is a unique attack that can be used. It's a move that ends things with a single blow. The players in the game used to call it the final one hit. Once the slime enters that state, he uses this final move, crushing it instantly. After a bit of repeated practice, he figures out it takes him around 10 seconds to defeat a slime. He is aware that if he were already level 20, he would be able to take out a slime with just a single tap. Still, he knows he cannot stop now. This slime training will eventually build up. Over time, that experience will stack and help him grow stronger, so he decides to make it part of his daily routine. The training actually uses up quite a bit of both his stamina and mana. If he keeps repeating this routine non-stop, our protagonist's body, which is still just a level 1, 9-year-old will reach its limit. He knows how the game works. When players pushed themselves too far, they ended up in an abnormal state. For example, if stamina fell below 50%, the character would start to feel chills. If it dropped under 30%, cold sweats would start. According to the stuff he knows, he figures he will be fine as long as he stays above that 30% mark. Knowing that, he plans to manage his stamina and mana carefully while continuing his training. After practicing for a while, he manages to defeat a slime much faster than before. That makes him wonder if his existence level has already increased, yet he feels it should not be that easy to raise his existence level. There are no status windows or clear indicators like in the game, so it is hard to be certain. He begins to wonder if the repetitive actions he has been doing meet the conditions for unlocking a skill, and then unexpectedly he does gain one. He assumes it might be related to how often he was clenching his fist, maybe something like a grip-based skill, but even that feels too simple to be true. He also notices that he feels his heart squishing when the mana decreases, but his stamina does not show any obvious symptoms. Still, he is sure that summoning slimes continuously must be causing some unseen strain. Our boy starts to wonder if Evan, being a side character in the game, had naturally better stamina than magical ability. Perhaps that is why he has not felt the effects of exhaustion yet. A sudden realization hits him as he remembers Evan being a mage in the game, so none of this fully adds up. Meanwhile, outside the room, Mabel hears sounds and rushes in to check on him. Our boy assures her that everything is fine and tells her to come back in a few hours. After she leaves, our protagonist curses the game's developers. Although he is not planning on giving up or dying so easily, he decides to create a proper, structured daily schedule to train and improve his physical condition. He believes that combining slime training with science-based exercise routines will give him better results. He also plans to write an extensive world-building book, unlike the simple one he made before. This time, he will include everything: the myths behind the game's creation, the histories of all the kingdoms, global politics, the locations of every hidden treasure, and details about every major character that exists in the world. Our boy has played the game many times, and the information is still fresh in his memory. He plans to make full use of that knowledge to avoid dangers and stay ahead. However, he knows this reality may not follow the game perfectly. That's why he understands the importance of tracking the differences between the story he knew and what is happening now. That is the only way he can try to predict what is coming. He is especially alert because he feels like one of those deadly waves might already be inside the mansion, and he plans to tread carefully from there on out. Everything he is doing now is purely for survival. He has finally put together a training schedule with one goal: to strengthen his body. It is a blend of all the useful knowledge he has gathered from the game and the book he is writing about this world. With that plan in place, Evan is ready to begin his training right away. Mabel turns to the other servants and asks if they have noticed how their young master has been acting different lately. She points out how he has been locking himself up in his room, ordering everyone not to enter. One maid notices that Mabel is getting too emotional and warns her to be careful with how she behaves. The servant boy reminds her that being friendly with the young master is fine, but they should not forget he is still their master. Getting too close might not end well, and there is no benefit in overstepping that boundary. Another maid agrees that she too has sensed that something is off. The young master, who used to stir up trouble and pull pranks almost daily, seems quiet. Things have been much calmer around the house since then. The boy then mentions seeing him in the backyard, doing something odd. He describes how the child was in some strange stance, and it almost looked like some kind of exercise. Hearing this, the maid recalls that she has also noticed him clenching and loosening his wrists lately. The boy shrugs and says maybe it is just one of those things children do that adults cannot really understand. Mabel is still worried and convinced that something has changed after Evan got sick. The maid tries to calm her down, while the boy warns that if she keeps acting like this, it will be hard for her to continue working there. Just then, another servant bursts into the dining room where they are all gathered. Out of breath, he reports that their young master just lifted a boulder from the garden. The boy immediately says that he is imagining things, but the newcomer insists. Though the boulder was not massive, it definitely was not the kind of thing a kid should be able to lift. Not only that, when he asked Evan about it, the boy calmly replied it was a stand-in for dumbbells. The poor servant does not even know how to pronounce dumbbells. Hearing that, Mabel tries to rush off to find him, but the maid grabs her and holds her back. The boy turns to the one who brought the news and presses again if he is sure he was not just seeing things. The servant answers that it really did happen. Mabel struggles to free herself, but the maid doesn't let her go. Meanwhile, Evan is with his mother, Redine D. Sheaton, Marquis Sheaton's first wife. They are sitting together, sipping tea. She lightly scolds her son, wondering what he has been so caught up in lately that he haven't even had time to sit and have tea with her like before. He explains that he has been busy researching artifacts and doing exercises to stay healthy. She instantly understands that by artifacts, he means the mere soul's necklace he received from his father. But the part about doing exercises puzzles her. She had thought he wanted to become a powerful mage. Our boy replies that everyone has a path they are naturally drawn to. Forcing something that does not fit just brings misery, not only to the one doing it, but also to the people watching, and those pushing it as well. She gives him permission to do whatever he feels is right, since things will only get more hectic starting next year. That is when the young noble remembers nobility lessons begin at age 10. In just 1 year, he will be learning everything from noble history, languages, math, geography, and swordsmanship to magic and all the things a noble should know. She reminds him that as a member of the Shurden Marquisate and a noble from the Dungeon City, he has a big responsibility. One day, he will be helping his older brother manage the family's affairs, so he has to be ready for it. He figures what she really means is that once he becomes an adult, he will be expected to enter the dungeon and meet certain expectations. She is surprised that he already knows about that. But of course he does, since our protagonist died because of it in the game. He promises her that he will study hard once the year starts. Though, for now she wants him to enjoy himself while he still can. She encourages him to play, to explore the city like before, though the city is still in chaos after the dungeon's recent reverse flow. Evan agrees on the surface, but deep inside he has already decided that he is going to keep up with the slime training every chance he gets. With 1 year left, he plans to fully master it and start the second immortality project. But for that, he needs to find a character who suits the project. Back in his room, he pulls out his notes, going over the demigod characters he had encountered in the game's Viscount storyline. He skips the Venom Spear and the Blood-Eyed Witch, even though she was both stunning and powerful. The problem is that he has no idea where they are now. Then, his eyes land on Silent Knight, a character who is one of the strongest in the game, same as our hero. He recalls that Silent Knight was a deadly assassin who used twin daggers, could blend into shadows, and took down monsters silently. But Silent Knights and the other demigods, their fate was unfortunate. Evan believes he can change Silent Knight's destiny too. The assassin, originally from Sheeton, lost his parents in a large-scale dungeon reverse flow when he was just 9. He was sold to a foreign mercenary group and only awakened his powers after entering a dungeon. As the young noble thinks more about that large-scale dungeon event, he remembers his mother mentioning how the city is still recovering from the recent reverse flow. That means Silent Knight, one of the game's top-tier demigods, is probably here in Shurden right now. As he decides to find him, he heads to Mabel and announces that they are going shopping. Inside the carriage, she is still confused. Mabel wonders what he is planning to buy, since there is not much to see in the streets after all the dungeon chaos. He answers that he is going to buy a person, leaving Mabel speechless. He informs her that their destination is the slave market. Morning arrives, and in a damaged district, injured townspeople move slowly through the streets as a carriage rattles along the marketplace road. Inside, Evan explains the city's decline, linking it to the dungeon's reversal and the monsters that escaped, causing widespread damage. Mabel adds that until repairs are complete, few merchants will return. She continues saying that, noting the ongoing hunt for the escaped creatures. Our boy admits the timing is not ideal for shopping, but it cannot be helped. If the chance is missed now, the city will only grow busier, making future moves more difficult. The maid warns that this is not the time to be outside buying something, especially when the purchase in question is a slave. The protagonist stays calm as he tells her not to worry. He explains that the market they are heading to is the only one in Shurden, officially recognized by the country. She questions its legitimacy, and he confirms it is meant to be a safe and monitored place. He recalls that in this world, the state runs slave markets, and after their creation, most abuse complaints vanished. Even so, loopholes remain, exploited by many. Some victims revolt, submitting proof of mistreatment, and among these rebels stands a figure from Demon War 3, a red-haired girl wielding flames, known as the Blood Witch. He has crossed paths with her before, and in that encounter, he died. The carriage stops before a grand building. Inside, Evan walks between a knight and the maid. The knight announces their arrival, as the boy turns to him, confirming that he will be his protector. The man, introduced as Dane, hesitates while pointing out, this is not a place suited for someone of noble upbringing. The protagonist responds firmly that he understands the world. He's not here to treat it like a spectacle or flaunt his wealth. He is here to find people he truly needs. The knight suggests that the Marquis could provide them, but Evan insists on doing it himself. He recalls that the most people chosen by the Marquis died alongside him. They move forward, entering a room where a bald man greets them. He is surprised, wondering why he came alone. Evan replies that he wanted to see for himself, rather than rely on someone else's choice. He asks to meet children his age, already aware they are orphans from the recent disaster. The man explains these children hardened their resolve and sold themselves. which means most of them would not suit his needs. But the boy counters that this means they are motivated and hardworking, so testing them is not necessary. Instead, he wants someone who can grow alongside him and stay by his side to protect him. The bald man agrees, since there is no need to discuss further if that is the decision. At Evan's request, he guides them to a room where several children await. The man explains he has excluded anyone younger than 12, while Evan scans the group closely as more children are brought in. His focus lands on a boy with blue hair, black eyes, and tanned skin. He recognizes him instantly as the Silent Knight. His gaze shifts to a red-haired girl, remembering her as a top 5 character from Demon War 3, infamous for her evil reputation. Dane comments that the children seem weak and suggests looking at others, but the boy refuses, saying he needs them both. Demigods, beings chosen by God, were unique to Demon War. They are a subspecies of humans that appeared suddenly, with naturally weaker bodies and slower development. It led people to believe that they were inferior, yet some among them became outrageously strong. The ones standing in front of him are exactly that, the Blood Witch and the Silent Knight, representatives of their race in Demon War. The demigods overcame their weak physical bodies through dungeon leveling. When they leveled up in a dungeon, they received double the blessings a normal human would. The deeper they went, the greater the effect, allowing them to grow so strong that humans could never catch up. However, most demigods found it difficult to even enter a dungeon at a low level. Even if they did, most would die before the 5th floor. The majority had to be sacrificed for the minority to grow stronger. Evan concludes everything is fine now, and he promises not to let them two die, since that they serve him now. The bald man apologizes, saying the price is only half of what others cost, and that taking it would cause trouble with the Marquise. Our boy answers he has no intention of discussing their worth and will be taking them. Evan declares that he will take both of the children. Earlier, he had instructed the trademaster to send him any children with the features he described. The man agreed, promising to keep it a secret. With this, he is confident he will find more potential demigod prospects. He turns to face the two and studies them closely, remembering their murderous intent in the game, the way they fought without hesitation. There is no time for them to mourn the loss of their parents. Our protagonist assures them he will not be a bother and simply asks for their names. The red-haired girl hesitates as she wonders what he means. When told again, she exchanges a glance and introduces herself as Belua, though her mother used to call her Lua. He acknowledges her name, expressing his hope to grow close enough that can call her Lua. The boy introduces himself as Shine, as he recalls meeting Belua when he entered the slave market, admitting this is the first time he has learned her name. Evan recognizes the name Shine and notes how it contrasts with his in-game concept as a Silent Knight. He introduces himself as Evan D. Sheaton and invites the two to get along with him. Shine hesitates, then asks if he can pose a question. He wants to know why Evan bought defective products like them. The Marquis' son replies that if Shine is the same age as him, he should already know the answer. Shine presses further, asking if he bought them on purpose, to mock and toy with them. Evan goes quiet as his gaze shifts between the two. He speaks of the world's unfairness. His words are directed at Shine. The child admits his understanding of the harsh reality. Evan recalls his own fortune of being born as the second son of a Marquis, able to live comfortably and happily. He adds how surprising it would be for someone like them to receive such fortune. The words push Shine as he admits the reality of his own upbringing, born into poverty and hardship. He admits his body is weak and useless, demanding to know what kind of blessing Evan is talking about. The protagonist responds that it is talent, an overwhelming talent. He claims both Shine and Belua have it. Shine accuses him of toying with them, but Evan counters that ignoring him might make them feel better for now, as he asks if they will ever truly be satisfied. Belua questions what talent he is referring to, asking if she has it too. Evan confirms that both of them possess it, the talent to grow stronger. She recalls how her mother once apologized for giving birth to someone as weak as her. Shine finds it relatable, saying his mother felt the same. Our boy dismisses their mother's pity, explaining that their talent simply is not something easily recognized. When Shine presses, asking how he is aware of it if even their parents did not know, Evan reveals that he has a talent of his own. Our boy claims he has the talent to find geniuses like the two before him. The girl grabs his sleeve, asking if she can truly become stronger, and he answers that she can. He explains that he can prove it but needs 3 years of preparation, and if they follow his orders for that time, he will show them results. If they are not satisfied, they can leave him freely. He adds that as long as they stay, no one will disrespect them again. Shine protests, reminding him they are slaves, but our boy swears on his name to keep his promise. He states that if the results are as promised, they must follow his orders. Belua admits he is no philanthropist and brought them here because he wants something from them. Evan asks for their decision. asking if they will trust his words to prove their talent and place their fate in his hands. In silence, the two sit in the cell where chains bound their ankles, the boy declaring he would survive, refusing to die like this. The girl agrees, sharing the same resolve. Evan asks if they will entrust their fates to him. The two children sit in silence until the boy lowers his head and says he wants to trust him. He recalls his mother's constant apologies for their weakness, and his father too. Our boy promises that in 3 years they will thank their parents, be grateful and proud to be born strong and brave. The girl begins to cry and the kids cling to him. The headmaid spots them and instantly yells for the staff, ordering the children to be cleaned and searched. Outside, Dane asks how the young master intends to use them. Calmly, he replies they will remain with him as personal servants for now, but eventually they will follow him into the dangerous dungeons. The steward questions if that is wise, recalling what was said earlier, but the young master's mind is already made up. Dane remarks that at this young age he was able to persuade them so expertly. He continues, saying something about kids when the noble cuts him off, insisting he did not lie to them. They will definitely become strong, and in 3 years Dane will see that too. The man responds that if he insists, then they should go inside, promising to send the children to him as soon as they are ready. Later, Evan greets them. Shine stays silent. He finally speaks, recalling his earlier statement about wanting something if they proved their talent. He wonders what they will need to do, asking if it means staying as servants. The young master states he only wants one thing from them, which is to protect him. Both repeat his words, and he points to himself, clarifying it is him. The boy replies that they are just kids, but our protagonist assures them they will become really strong. He says that he wants them to protect him using that strength. He adds they will stay by his side at all times except when training, guarding him from danger while staying close. When Shine asks if there is a dangerous situation he will face in the future, he calls the boy smart and agrees with his guess. He confirms that there will be danger, and he needs them. The child begins to wonder aloud, as the young master explains it is his personal training, kept secret from others and shown only to them. The girl comments that she wants to try, and he addresses her by name, assuring her she will be able to defeat monsters scarier than this. Since he has told them what he wants, he says they can now tell him what they want. Both repeat his words once more. Our boy tells them that if they protect him, he will be obligated to grant all their wishes. Introducing himself as the Marquis' second son, Evan says they can ask for anything, no matter if it's treasures, higher status, or even freedom. He urges them to speak and asks what they want. The boy repeats Evan's words, with growing determination declares his desire to kill all monsters. He shouts that he wants to kill every one of them. The young demigod's hatred for monsters must have been ingrained from a young age. Even in the game, he used to burn in hatred towards the monsters. Meanwhile, Shine meets Evan's gaze, and the protagonist assures him it will be done as he wants, but insists it must be that way. He explains that to become stronger, he must enter the dungeons. Shine hesitates, voicing his fear of dying inside because of his weakness. Evan's tone remains confident as he tells him that if he follows instructions exactly, he will never die. Shine stays silent, yet if this path can make revenge on the monsters possible, he is willing to offer everything he has. Evan accepts without hesitation as he tells him to do as he likes. Shine agrees, before the young master turns to Belwa and asks what she wants to do. In the game, she was a dangerous being who severely harmed humans. Neither monster nor demon, but a witch who relentlessly hindered players and forced them into a mandatory quest to kill her. He wonders how this small girl could one day become someone who sought humanity's destruction. She admits she doesn't know, explaining she dislikes being cold or hungry and doesn't want to die. She admits that she wants to become stronger, yet beyond that, she has no idea what she truly wants. Softly, Evan raises a hand and reassures her, calling her name as he holds her hands. He reminds her she's only 7, and that it's natural not to know everything yet, telling her it isn't her fault. He says whatever the answers may be, they can learn them together step by step. She agrees to try and find what she wants in life. Our boy announces that from now on he will provide them with a special training program. He considers that expecting them to handle it right away is too much, since demigods level up far slower than humans. Even when they do, the progress is small. Although he already plans the next steps, he knows that even demigods have a way to grow stronger, and that way is through skills. He declares they'll start learning skills now without worrying about the definitions or types, since the main point is that mastering a skill makes one stronger. Some skills grant benefits immediately upon learning them, increasing stamina, mana capacity, and physical abilities. These are passive skills, which improve specific activities and provide lasting advantages, like the Shurden Knight's mastery of vision swordsmanship. He adds that it not only improved their sword skills, but permanently boosted their physical capabilities. Our boy hopes the weight training they are doing now will one day develop into a similar skill. Curious, the two children lean forward, asking if skills can truly make them stronger. Evan explains that there are many ways to gain skills but tells them to focus on two methods. The first is repetition, practicing until a skill becomes recognized as a personal strength. The second is joining a specific group and learning its vision over many years. He adds that they will use both methods to improve, noting that the reason servants in Demon War had immense stamina and mana despite their roles was because noble households passed down powerful skills through visions, giving skilled servants higher status. He continues by stating that the higher the rank of the family, the stronger the skills they possess. They listen closely as he explains they are in a good position, since the Sheridan family holds the rank of Marquisate, with household skills considered the most traditional and outstanding in the entire kingdom. They wonder if they will be able to learn those skills. Evan replies they can, but mastering them will not be easy. Unlike other servants, their current effectiveness is far below average, which will slow the growth of these skills. He explains that it will take much more effort to reach the level of others. Still, if they can overcome the hardships, they will build a strong foundation for stamina and mana capacity, which will lead to their growth and successful dungeon clears. Finally, Evan concludes that they can only be shown the path but cannot be walked through it. When Belua faces the question if they can walk the path ahead, he never doubts it, deciding that trust and sincerity from them are enough. They agreed, standing before their master. The young master looks at the pair and asks how they are and if they can walk. The boy answers that he can, while the girl agrees. He claps his hands together as a blonde maid appears, wondering what he has called her to whine about this time. Our boy raises his voice, insisting he is not going to whine, and explains that he has a favor to ask. Pointing toward the two, he asks if she can teach them herself. The maid repeats his words in surprise, questioning if that is the kind of favor he meant. He begins to remark that what he heard about the children is very important. One's meant to stay by his side forever. He pleads, calling them a bit weak but talented, urging her to take charge. She agrees, deciding to personally train the girl and have the head butler train the boy, adding that the same approach will work on him as well. Before long, Shine asks what kind of man the head butler is, but before he can get an answer, a figure approaches, asking if the young master called. Evan thinks to himself that it is simple. He just needs to act cute like before to make the man take care of Shine, even if it costs him his dignity. He calls out to the butler, asking for a favor. Meanwhile, Shine recalls buildings burning and people screaming. Someone screams for him to hurry and run away, as he remembers vowing to survive, to get revenge on the monsters. A voice snaps him back, yelling for him to wake up. It's a butler shouting at him to pay attention. The man barks again, telling him not to act weak from just a few hours of basic training, warning that at this rate he won't be able to handle even a single duty of a marquise's servant. Then he sprints forward, reminding the child that basic stamina is crucial and that a servant of the Sheridan house must be able to aid his master. He warns that afternoon theory lessons are next, so Shine must preserve his energy. After calling a 10-minute break, the butler remarks that it is fun to watch someone grow. Evan shows up as he agrees the stamina is lacking, but notes the boy is talented in every other aspect, with good judgment for his age, sharp intellect, and strong determination to complete his duties to the end. He decides to get serious with training, assuring he has enough healing artifacts. At that moment, a maid approaches and informs him that the Marquise is calling. The young master replies and heads inside. In the study, the Marquis expresses concern over him not playing outside lately. The kid explains he has been busy experimenting to figure out the necklace's abilities. The Marquis listens and advises him to be careful not to hurt himself. Mid-conversation, Marquis informs that the artifact is a growth type, capable of evolving with the user. He explains that it can gain new abilities when certain conditions are met. He also admits he hadn't known this until the necklace recognized its owner, but now he points it out for him to see, gesturing to the jewel and asking if Evan notices the green glow in the center. He explains that when the entire decoration lights up, the artifact will level up, and since it is already showing signs, it will not take long. Our boy recalls that in the game, no one used this necklace, so he never thought its growth type mattered. Now he wonders if when it levels up, his slimes will grow stronger too. The thought of them becoming too powerful to kill with his fists alarms him. He doesn't want to die to a slime, yet he also cannot bring himself to stop training. He dismisses his worries, deciding a leveled up slime is still just a slime. Afterward, the Marquis brings up how Evan spent all his allowance hiring new servants, asking if it was out of pity. Evan responds that it was out of certainty, believing those two would grow stronger and protect him, which is why he asked the head butler and head maid to train them. The Marquis listens and says he will trust him if that is how he feels, but warns that the servants will be his sole responsibility, not theirs. Evan agrees, declaring that those two are already his people. 3 months have passed. Shine stands in a servant's uniform as he faces the young master, while Balua wears her maid attire. Evan examines them carefully under the watchful eyes of the head butler. He remarks that although their condition is not perfect, their stamina now matches the others. The young master questions how hard they were pushed, recalling that newcomers unused to dungeons are typically weak and usually require 3 years to adapt, while these two have reached that point in only 3 months. Speaking firmly, he declares that failure would be his fault and not theirs. The girl adds that she worked hard, while the butler suggests they should now train only half a day and spend the rest of their time with the young master. Evan agrees, explaining that keeping them close was his intent from the beginning. He hints at something else he has planned, prompting the butler to promise preparation for whatever is required. Soon a large box is brought forward, and the noble reveals a decorated book, calling it a special advantage only he can use. As he opens the box, he decides that the first items they will need are twin daggers for Shine and a lamp for Belua. Shine grips a pair of golden twin daggers while his partner holds a lamp. Evan explains that they are artifacts rather than ordinary tools. Remembering their neglected status in the game, yet knowing their true worth, he demonstrates their use by dashing forward, spinning in arcs as the daggers carve through the air until a tree trunk splinters beneath the force. He asks if Shine memorized the move. He eagerly replies, recognizing it as the fastest way to learn twin dagger skills. Evan explains that the technique is known as beehive felling, beginning by crossing the blades to block. The young master demonstrates the form, crossing the blades to guard, bending his knees as the swing flows downward. He emphasizing perfect timing as the motion is cancelled midway to avoid wasted effort. Shine quickly mimics the movement, and the protagonist clarifies canceling as cutting the action mid-command for faster repetition. Evan asks him to just trust and follow his lead. Shine nods and grips both daggers, matching the rhythm as he drills the sequence non-stop until his footwork sharpens and the arcs snap clean, holding the stance as he grasps the twin dagger basics within a single day. Meanwhile, Belua works indoors with the lamp while Evan observes. The lamp, he explains, can be used to train the mana capacity control skill through repeated activation. He adds, since mana capacity control is the most important skill for a mage to develop, continual use of the lamp makes it possible to both learn and improve the skill. Spell incantation speed, spell force, mana recovery rate, and total mana capacity are all influenced by it. On top of that, every activation of the lamp slightly increases fire affinity with no limit, meaning that as familiarity with flames grows, the ability to wield fiercer flames will follow, making the lamp the perfect training tool for her. At that moment, she decides to turn it on, comparing herself to Shine, but is interrupted by Redine. She asks about the lamp, and Belua quickly calls her Madam. Redine remarks that it is an antique that should not have been taken from the storehouse. She suddenly realizes Belua is the child Evan brought and wonders if he gave her the lamp. The girl explains that he told her it would help improve her mana control, and Redine nods in understanding, noting that our boy gave a hard-to-use artifact to teach her basics, even though he has no talent for magic himself. Belua immediately defends him, insisting he is not untalented. Redine offers to help with her training, calling it witch training, but tells her to keep it a secret from Evan. Afterward, the second stage of special training progresses well as Belua repeatedly activates the magic lamp, gaining mana capacity control and increasing her proficiency. Shine also continues to focus on twin dagger techniques, practicing by canceling the high-level beehive feller movement midway. During these same months, the protagonist summons slimes in both hands, showing he has learned to control them simultaneously. He holds Mirasol's necklace, recalling his plan to remove it once reaching a certain existence level. Our boy realizes it is a growth-type artifact, with the slimes he summons becoming stronger as well, which makes them harder to kill but provides more experience. Considering this new opportunity, he decides that what he needs now is not an item, but a skill. With that thought in mind, Evan begins Immortality Project number 3 by summoning slimes with both hands. Evan launches into his Immortality Project number 3, its myriad poison immunity, determined to build tolerance until no toxin can threaten his life again. The problem lies in the cost, since the poisons he needs are so expensive that without the head butler's approval, family funds remain out of reach. Mabel overhears and asks what exactly he plans to use. Evan explains that he cannot make her servant in the way she expects, but suggests they work together instead. She tilts her head in confusion, yet he reveals the truth of his plan to start a business. Not long after, Eric arrives and asks what favor his younger brother wants. Evan immediately brings up the city inspection assignment entrusted to Eric by their father, the duty where Sheridan heirs walk through the city in person to understand what it means to lead. He explains that he wants to help with it, and Eric agrees, Pulling out a paper, Evan slides it across the table, and Eric studies the notes closely, wondering if they were written from what others said. Our boy answers that he reached the conclusions himself. Eric admits they seem accurate, realizing the document records every notable event in the city from the past 6 months. Each incident is paired with its cause and consequence, along with predictions for supplies and demand, new items, and simple recipes made from accessible ingredients. Evan explains he wants to use this knowledge to start a small business, earn an allowance, and learn more about the city. Eric advises that they bring it to their father for approval. Before the marquee, our boy presents the plan. Their father quickly remarks that the proposal spans far too wide for a small business, and warns that Evan cannot handle all of it. Evan answers that he intends to focus only on one part. Pressed further, he admits he will handle medicine while asking his father to manage the rest. Reading deeper, the Marquis realizes the document was written to offer information from the start. He narrows his gaze and asks if this was truly his intention, while Evan insists it was only meant to prove determination. The Marquis glances at Eric, questioning if this child is really his son, and Eric shoots back that perhaps he should be asking if this boy is truly his brother. Evan slaps the papers onto the desk, declaring that a meeting with the vassals will be needed. The Marquis responds that it is time to expand the business Evan has already been running. When the vassals gather, some argue that the plan would carry more weight without a name attached, while others insist the contents alone make it worthwhile. One man questions why Evan wants to pursue the medicine trade when it produces the least profit. Marquis confirms this, recalling his son's explanation that the industry has stagnated because priests monopolize healing. Our boy points out that the first duty to citizens is medicine. He points out that the temple avoids treating injuries through any means but God's power, ensuring donations flow only to them. As a result, only dungeon explorers or the wealthy receive help, while ordinary people often die waiting. He explains that medicine is the only answer in emergencies, and if the industry develops with stabilized production of minor healing potions, they can be sold cheaply and lower the death rate across the slums. With resolve, he declares that he will proceed. The Marquis answers firmly, stating they will proceed with his name on the line, and that if they do so, the temple will not be able to interfere. Evan hesitates, asking if that is truly safe when the temple is the state religion, but his father reassures him it is fine. He promises to negotiate directly, even before the emperor if necessary, and declare that it is for the sake of the citizens. He authorizes the expansion of the business, the creation of new items, and the founding of a pharmacy. Evan thanks him respectfully, while within himself his true aim remains unchanged, to gather every poison and herb in existence and train his body until complete immunity guarantees his survival. As soon as permission from the Marquis is secured, construction begins immediately. The building soon stands ready. Pharmacists themselves are nowhere to be found because this territory belongs to the temple, whose interference infuriates Evan as he recalls his past in Demon War 3, where their disruptions made herb collection harder, dungeons more dangerous, and potions nearly impossible to secure, forcing the hero to either recruit an alchemist or learn the craft alone. To solve the issue, he decides to make potions personally, though doubts rise about who would ever buy medicine from a 9-year-old until a new idea forms. He decides that he could study under a pharmacist, show rapid progress, and earn acceptance while secretly running things from behind the scenes, with the added benefit of already possessing a potion recipe from the game to pass off as his own. When Shine enters, Evan immediately asks if he has found someone. Shine admits he hasn't, explaining instead that he located a man who can find people for them. A bald man appears, carrying papers, and our protagonist recognizes him as the head of the slave market. The man explains that there are many pharmacists outside the city and hands over a list of names, advising him to consider his choices. Evan's eyes lock onto one specific entry, Bernard Garcia, age 63. Without hesitation, he demands the man to bring him here. 4 days later, Shine escorts Bernard to the mansion, where the older man introduces himself bluntly. The bald man also presents an assistant, a young woman in a maid outfit who introduces herself as Hannah. Shine chastises Bernard for disrespecting the young master, but the old man retorts until Evan calmly introduces himself directly. The man responds that he should call him Grandpa Bernard. After thanking the bald man for his efforts and reminding him to continue searching for demigod children while keeping the matter quiet, Evan dismisses him. Seeing all this, Bernard wonders if he truly is just a child. In response, Evan reveals his age, drawing laughter before the pharmacist asks what exactly he wants from him. When pressed, the old man admits helping is another matter altogether, recalling rumors that our boy knows alchemy beyond his own understanding and warning there will be consequences if that claim is false. Unfazed, Evan proposes a deal. If he can show him something new, Bernard must stay with him for at least 5 years. Bernard agrees but says if Evan fails, he will become his apprentice with all secrets laid bare. Confident, Evan accepts without hesitation. They ride to Brothers' Pharmacy, the carriage stopping before a grand building. Evan declares it will soon be his workplace. Inside, Bernard insists on seeing the alchemy at once, but Evan first leads them into the medicine production room, where rows of vibrant purple plants grow in incubation. He places potion bottles nearby and explains the method of medicinal herb incubation. He calls it a cheating potion for its speed and simplicity, though it comes with strict requirements from the end of Demon War 4. Holding the potion, Evan asks if Bernard knew of it. The old man admits he did not, repeating the name in disbelief as Hannah echoes the term, both stunned by the technique. Evan clarifies that rarer herbs take longer, and repeated use wears out the effect, demanding fresh deposits. But even with limitations, the potion enables full-scale herb production. Bernard reflects bitterly that he believed no new potion could exist, and now a child has taught him something he never knew. With a small smile, he remarks that his remaining years will be enjoyable. At last, Evan presents a contract for 50 years instead of 5, urging Bernard to sign. As the weight of the revelation settles, the old man reaches for the quill. Afterward, Evan continues working on the book of settings for Demon War, keeping up his routine as he updates the character list. Later, the group gathers with potions and herbs. At Evan's signal, the meeting begins as he explains they should first gather every medicinal herb from the city first. He adds that they'll slowly expand the collection area later, noting that adventurers will often hand over unused herbs. Bernard suggests sharing sample potions with herb sellers, and Evan quickly agrees. He points out that producing a cheaper, easy-to-store potion would allow distribution across the entire city. Evan reflects privately that even selling cheaply will bring profit, because although the margins begin small, the pharmacy's steady growth will eventually handle citywide distribution. Bernard worries about possible order interference, only to be reassured that the Marquis family's influence will prevent problems. Meanwhile, since Evan cannot visit daily, he arranges for Hannah to assist Bernard directly. He then calls for Mabel, explaining that it will be difficult for him to face the pharmacy himself, so she must act as the representative figure of the business in his place. When asked if she can handle such a responsibility, Mabel falls silent for a moment, before replying that she has been preparing since the moment it was first mentioned. She tells him to leave it all to her, vowing to help in something where his honor is at stake, and promising to stop anything that might get in their way. Pleased with her determination, Evan decides she will also manage herb storage, which includes overseeing the gathering of ingredients for potions. 1 week later, a crowd gathers outside as Brothers' Pharmacy becomes a sudden success, with customers flooding the shop and trading herbs for minor healing potions. Bernard Garcia's reputation raises trust, and demand grows rapidly. Mabel reports that they will buy both medicinal and poisonous herbs, exchanging them for potions, which draws even more suppliers. Evan notes that people praise the effects, and one warrior even boasts the potion works better than priestly healing. Bernard proudly replies that no ordinary alchemist would dare stake their name so boldly. Elsewhere in the building, Marquis examines a report and asks if the numbers shown are revenue, only to be told it is actually pure profit after costs and wages. The reply leaves him surprised, as he realizes that his son has achieved so much. With the pharmacy's success, 2 more pharmacists are hired through the trademaster. Soon, all herbs in Dungeon City funnel toward them, while collectors and alchemists from across the nation arrive to buy in Sheridan. Soon after, this development leads to the creation of a skull-marked purple poison tea. When asked if it is safe, Evan reassures everyone by explaining it is made with precise ratios of medicinal and poisonous herbs to build resistance, then calmly drinks it himself. Mabel warns he might die if he keeps drinking it, but he replies that he drinks precisely so that he will not die. He then offers it to Shine and asks if he wants to try. Shine hesitates and asks to pass, but Belua quickly volunteers, making the maid shout for her to stop and fearing everyone will die copying him. At that moment, she realizes it is already March and blurts out that Evan's 10th birthday is coming soon. This makes him realize that it has already been a year since he became Evan. With noble training about to take over his days, he knows there will be no more time for such practice. Shine then wonders if they can just tell everyone the truth, but Evan firmly refuses, remembering his failures after trying everything to grow stronger. Shine suggests they go to the dungeon instead, but Evan refuses again, saying neither he, Shine, nor Belua are ready. When Shine presses further, asking why not, Evan points out they still have 2 years left on their agreed limit, declaring they will only go once everything is ready. Shine protests that they have gotten much stronger, but Evan cuts him off sharply, telling him he still has a long way to go. When reflecting, Evan tells Shine and Belua they have grown a great deal over the past year. He remembers how at first they were merely happy to catch up with children their own age before growing proud of surpassing them. Shine denies being puffed up and insists he would never act that way in front of his young master. Evan warns that even well-trained soldiers meet their end inside dungeons, but quickly reassures him there is still time to improve outside. He urges him not to rush and to prepare thoroughly so nothing can go wrong. Evan asks if Shine can wait, and he agrees, while Belua urges him to be gentler, only for Shine to point out with exasperation that she is 8 years old. Later, Mabel presents a box of green herbs and explains it is the weekly poison and medicine batch. Evan identifies it as Pattern F and thanks her firmly. She reports Bernard's concern that more people are needed, sparking the idea of adding Hannah as an assistant pharmacist, and Mabel praises the girl's steady growth. Evan inquires about the temple, and Shine explains that the pharmacy's construction in the central district has made them anxious. Mabel confirms she has already reported this to the Marquise. When she wonders if he is still fixated on slime training, Evan muses about killing slimes before they can scream. Mabel suggests using an artifact that grants gripping power, but Shine dismisses the thought until he remembers one. An artifact that increases strength and should be simple to obtain. Mabel recalls its association with Demon War 3's Bloodstained Fist event and warns of the many conditions tied to it. As the memory unfolds, Evan recalls that a random event triggers once he grows close to Shine, where his birthday is set to a certain date. Our boy presents him with blood-stained gloves, claiming they make him feel stronger. Should he accept them, his attacks weaken, his skills fail to activate, monsters overwhelm him, and he dies. Should he refuse, he keeps the gloves, enters a dungeon, and still falls when his magic fails. Both choices end in tragedy. The artifact indeed boosts strength when worn, but nullifies any weapon's power, granting enhancement only when fighting barehanded. With this knowledge, he decides the artifact will not fail him against slimes since he wields no other weapons. He rallies the group with renewed energy, leading them out to shop. Redirecting Mabel away from the main shop, he explains that the artifacts there are all knockoffs, reminding them dungeon explorers never sell true artifacts through common stores. Shine asks what happens instead, and Evan explains they either use the artifacts themselves, auction them at massive gatherings, or end up robbed by others, each outcome driven by temptation. Shine gets shocked that such things happen for a single item, but Evan confirms, noting one artifact can decide a person's destiny. Shine insists this weakness does not apply to him, and Belua agrees, saying his class would never change him. Evan admits it is difficult to boast about being different, but thanks them sincerely, and joins the group as they ask their next destination. With determination, he explains there are still a few places he wishes to check. He isn't sure if what he seeks remains, and at last he points forward, announcing their destination. When explaining, Evan raises a finger and tells them that some dungeon explorers attempt to eat monster corpses despite the poison they often carry, though outside the dungeon controlling both poison and mana is nearly impossible. He adds that only authorized people may consume such things, while others smuggle them out in secret. Evan says that eating mana-filled monsters is rumored to make one stronger, but quickly clarifies it is nothing more than a rumor. Shine remarks that if it were true, their young master would have already given them some, while Evan suggests poison might instead build resistance. The maid warns him never to try it, but our boy reassures her he won't, and makes it clear that their butcher shop trip isn't for buying meat. At the Dual Blade Butcher Shop, the owner peers out suspiciously and asks who it is. Evan meets his gaze directly and states there is no need to waste time since the owner already knows, and they know as well. The man admits he had heard the Sheridan heir wasn't an ordinary person, and now sees it is true, inviting him inside. The man notes that someone important like him is clearly not there to buy or sell meat. Across the counter, the butcher questions if he came to catch him, but the young master instead points to the item in his hand. He explains it is something important he doesn't even realize the value of, and challenges him to guess. He offers that if the item is handed over, he can make the man cleaner in reputation, yet the butcher refuses, believing it pointless to pretend at this stage. Evan recalls having seen people like this before, and warns him that such an item will not reveal itself to the unworthy. Our boy mentions the man's long-buried dream of becoming a cook, which leaves him stunned. Bringing up the kingdom's monster cook certificate, he offers to recommend him for a second chance if he cooperates. The silence drags on until at last the owner asks what he truly wants. Back at the mansion, Shine and Belua place their hands on a sword and a crimson gem laid across the table. Evan recalls their earlier stops at Crimson Stir Fry and Orc Bar, where they collected artifacts. Items still present now are counted as part of their successful harvest, though neither sword nor gem had found an owner until now. Shine grips the blade and senses its strong magic, while Belua touches the gem and feels its heat, and their master watches silently. He knows precisely why neither had responded to others before them. When Shine lifts the sword and wonders aloud if it simply wasn't recognized as an artifact, Evan confirms but presses them to think further. Evan then explains that these two specific items were chosen because among Sheetan's hidden artifacts, they carried bugged possession settings. When detailing the error, he tells them that to control the dual blades, Twin Blood one must touch the Crimson Plate, while to control the Jade Flame Sphere one must touch Twin Blood, a mistake that happened due to programming errors mixing up their possession conditions. He remembers how in the past he had relied on the official guidebook and failed repeatedly, gathering information and completing quests in vain before realizing the artifact itself mocked those who wasted years seeking it. That is why he had obtained both at the same time. Evan emphasizes that they are also the best weapon artifacts available in Shurden. Belua acknowledges his knowledge, though Shine remains doubtful, prompting the young master to instruct them to exchange artifacts and try again, assuring them both will find what they desire. The switch triggers a surge of power, light flooding Shine's sword while red flames engulf Belua. In the end, both hold their rightful artifacts, leaving Evan to remark on how strange it is that a game's error could remain unchanged here. Comparing it to crafting from an old recipe where the results turn out greater than expected, he concludes the quality of these artifacts far surpasses ordinary item summoning. He finds himself unsure what to think about this world at all. Evan remembers himself seated at his computer, reflecting on how this world had once been the very game he loved. He questions whether he is truly a real person, and whether he genuinely lives in this reality. Belua holds the glowing red sphere and explains its complicated seal, while Shine examines the twin blades in his hands. Evan considers that what he once thought was a mistake might instead be another way to interpret the situation. When the swordsman wonders if something is wrong, he answers that he is simply glad they are happy, thanking them both and leaving them surprised. Shine asks why he is thanking them, but Belua replies that they should be thanking him for giving them such a gift. This prompts Shine to express his gratitude, followed by Belua, who calls him young master. He continues with composure, saying it is time to begin, and places a pair of gloves on the desk. Evan explains he had bought them from the Orc pub for a significant sum of gold, while recalling grimly that in the game these very gloves were tied to the death of both the main character and himself. Remembering the scene, he grips the gloves tightly and notes his own growth through Mirasol's necklace, which had already spared him from countless possible deaths. As he slips the gloves onto his hands, their color shifts and purple energy surges around him, power flooding through his body as energy spheres form in his palms. The numbers rise 0.5, then 0.7 until he crushes the orb in his grip, releasing a sharp burst of light. With that, the young master takes down the slime, certain now that he can incorporate slime training into his daily routine. Yet his necklace glows brightly, drawing his attention to Mirasol's necklace, which appears to have leveled up. As he resumes striking slimes, he realizes it suddenly takes a full second longer to defeat them. The realization comes quickly. If the necklace has grown stronger, then the summoned slimes must also have grown stronger alongside it. Fully aware of this, he recognizes that what he needs is no longer an item, but a skill. He accepts he has no choice and calls out to Mabel. When she enters and asks if he summoned her, he instructs her to bring tea prepared with extra poison, which she promptly delivers. Holding the cup, he recalls that one of the conditions is already fulfilled through his long poison resistance training. He drinks the venom surging through his body and decides it is time to attempt training for Devil's Attack, the dreaded final strike from Demon War that kills opponents instantly by targeting their weakest points. Though widely seen as a finishing move, he knows its hidden potential allows it to be used even on enemies at full health, provided the precise conditions are met, which makes learning it among the hardest challenges possible. Calculating the path, he reviews what has already been cleared. The level difference between him and the target, his weaponless strikes enabled by the blood-stained leather gloves that are not considered weapons, the target being at full health thanks to Mirasol's necklace. He explains the last challenge is the fourth condition, that the enemy must be unaware. He plans to achieve it by attacking the slime the moment it appears. On top of this, the final requirement is to be under debuffs, easily satisfied through poison resistance training, but the real struggle is execution. Unlike in the game where inputs could be pressed, here he must synchronize his body, summoning, and strike by instinct. He reminds himself again and again that he has no choice but to make it possible. A few days later, Mabel asked Bernard for a muscle pain relief potion. The old alchemist offers to prepare it, which makes her glad the pharmacy has everything at hand. Curious, he asks why the young master would need such medicine. She explains with worry that he has been pushing himself without eating or sleeping, training endlessly for something. Bernard comments that it sounds as if he has been screaming day and night, and she worries about how much longer it can continue. Outside his room, people knock and call his name. urging him to open the door and asking if he is all right. Inside, Evan collapses onto the floor, gasping for breath. A few days earlier, Mabel holds out a bottle and a pill while asking about the idea of kicking. Evan confirms her guess, explaining that Devil's Attack works by canceling a regular strike to force the final one hit, a technique called cancel, similar to how Shine uses double daggers. The difficulty, he says, lies in deciding which attack comes first. He adds for now he believes kicking is best since both hands must remain free to kill slimes. He adds that timing the slime's summoning at the perfect moment only makes the move harder. Evan also admits how much more difficult it feels to execute something with his body compared to simply clicking a keyboard. Mabel confesses she doesn't understand his strange talk but still wishes him good luck. He thanks her for that, promising to do his best, though he tells her to return to her duties when she offers to keep watching. Back in the present, someone calls from outside, urging him to at least show his face. The protagonist tells himself he cannot compromise anymore, swearing he will master Devil's Attack before his 10th birthday. He knows there is no way he will die as an extra in this game world. Evan screams in effort, while Shine slams his hands on the desk and declares he cannot take this anymore. He admits he doesn't know how powerful Devil's Attack might be, but fearing something bad will happen to young Master Evan at this rate. Belua answers calmly, reassuring him that if it is something Evan truly needs, he will accomplish it on his own. Meanwhile, Mabel hurries down the hall carrying a box of potions. She stops outside the door when she notices the usual sounds have gone silent. Mabel knocks hard, and soon Redding and the Marquise rush over, calling out repeatedly. When the Marquise demands the key, she explains the door is sealed, so only Evan can open it from within. Redding recalls the importance of this particular day, asking if he achieved what he wanted, and reminding him of the occasion. At last, footsteps sound from inside, the door opens, and Evan steps out to meet them. Redding moves forward with open arms, warmly wishing him a happy 10th birthday as the gathered servants look on. Shine and Belua call out in surprise, and Eric rushes closer to ask if he is truly all right. After a pause, Evan assures them he is fine and promises to remain that way. He turns to the Marquise to request an artifact from storage as a birthday gift and a reward for the pharmacy's success. As the scene shifts, a small building marks the next step in his plan, its display case holding a pair of crystal-like earrings. Later, an elderly instructor reacts with delight while praising Evan's quick understanding. Our boy admits it is still difficult despite Yo Banman's memories. He reflects that in otherworld stories, reincarnated characters often excel academically, but for him even simple lessons feel hard. Guided by his teacher, he tackles noble family trees, foreign relations, and the intricate web of aristocratic ties, knowing how easily such knowledge could trigger death flags. Memories of Demon War 3 remind him of countless possible deaths, many tied to foreign nobles. For a moment he even considers scarring his own face, though Mabel protests its value. Shine asks if he is certain about choosing just the earrings, but Evan insists they are what he wants most. Grateful for his birth family, he selects the Snow Mountain Spirit Earrings, an artifact that accelerates mana recovery, preparing himself for the next stage with them in hand. During training, sessions grow longer, and Shine points out that he is old enough to begin weapon practice. Evan explains he has yet to find a weapon that suits him, and cannot remove his gloves yet, which makes one hand useless for combat. Belua reminds him that strength is essential for survival in dungeons, but he counters that as a noble he should focus on what is most useful. For now he decides to train in hand-to-hand combat until he finds the right weapon. He is convinced he may be suited for something unusual, and resolves to try everything he encounters, aiming to decide within 2 years. While watching, Knight Captain Michael D., Erlach of the Sharian Marquis family, observes the grounds, known as the leader of the Iron Wall Knights sworn to protect them. Evan approaches, remembering that in the game the captain is only a little more important than him, yet in reality, the man feels intimidating. He recalls that Michael will die protecting the Marquis family when the Demon King's 4 divas invade, an event that forces both the knight and himself to perish together with the family's ruin. When training begins, the protagonist arrives for combat practice. He is surprised when the captain mentions he is there for the same purpose. Evan reacts with confusion, unsure of what he means, until Michael pulls off his shirt and declares he will be personally training him in combat from now on. He praises the boy for focusing on fighting before anything else and admits surprise that it is Evan. Panicked, the youth tries to explain that there has been a misunderstanding, but the knight insists he is the best teacher in the city, perhaps the nation, and refuses to be swayed. When Evan hesitates, pointing out how busy he must be, Michael brushes it aside and claims his student is more important than anything else. He suggests they should start with the easy things while he steps closer, leaving the protagonist trying to retreat. After a month, Evan sits under the shade of a tree, resting while Shine joins him. Belua approaches to offer a cloth to wipe his sweat, which he accepts gratefully. Shine mutters, wondering if there is one for him, but the attention remains on Evan. Nearby, Michael explains he will be absent from tomorrow to clear dungeons for the upcoming backwash, instructing him to train alone in the meantime. Our protagonist recalls that the knight usually avoided dungeons, but Michael explains that watching Evan's growth inspired him to push himself. He admits he still wants to improve even at his age. The boy calls it a good thing, adding that greater strength helps both in learning and in protecting the Marquis family. As they talk, the captain describes avoiding traps, finding the right path, and fighting monsters. Evan questions if that is not simply another kind of effort. Michael clarifies that leveling up in a dungeon is different, but the youth places a hand on his chest and shares his belief that dungeon rewards are just another form of compensation for effort. He compares it to training for strength, where risking lives to explore dungeons leads to level increases as the prize. Evan also declares that time does not matter because God judges and grants blessings fairly. To him, there is no difference between training effort and dungeon effort, since results always match what is given. He concludes that strong dungeon performances bring great results and asks if the captain agrees. Michael says the answer is enough, admitting he feels foolish for avoiding dungeons and realizing rewards come in another form that can be trusted since they are given by God. Before leaving, the knight promises to repay Evan, but the boy just asks for lighter training when he returns. Michael instead vows to use every method he knows to teach him after the dungeon. Evan thinks privately that it is the opposite of what he intended. The knight instructs the others to raid dungeons with enthusiasm and raise training intensity and preparation. His friend echoes the determination, saying they cannot simply sit back and watch. Shine adds he will intensify the captain's training as well. Our boy becomes occupied with slime practice, lectures, and combat drills. Several days later, on a Friday afternoon, Evan meets the trademaster after the knight has already departed for the dungeon. At the meeting, the bald man greets Evan and announces that he has brought the children discussed last time. The boy introduces himself as Paul, and the girl simply asks to be called Mary. Our protagonist wonders privately if they might have changed their names before appearing in the game. He instructs Mabel to wash them and guide them to their rooms, which she accepts, though he immediately clarifies firmly that it is not what she might think. In confirmation, he explains that Paul and Mary are demigods, thanking the trademaster and calling the arrangement an investment. The merchant then hands over investigation reports on the people Evan had requested. He wanted the information of the important leads of Demon Wars, realizing it won't be easy as it was the Bernard. He is aware that most characters are not active at this stage, and even the name or past of Demon War 3's main character remains unknown. Resolved, he decides to continue his work regardless. When Shine asks if he is fine with just that, Evan answers that he is. He also explains that he will help the rest later if they turn up, while looking over the names listed in the request and resolving to support efforts against the villains who plague the world. Shine wonders aloud if he plans to be on the front lines himself, but Evan shakes his head. He replied that he is merely an extra who will quietly provide support through items and preparation from the sidelines, rather than by stepping into battle. When interrupted, Belua suddenly announces that it is time for class. Evan screams that he has forgotten. Later, the old alchemist calls his name. Evan calmly eats shaved ice until Bernard finally asks if there has been a problem at the pharmacy since the summer began. Confused, our boy prompts him to explain further. Bernard clarifies that he is concerned about the uniforms being too warm for the season, saying he feels bad for the employees forced to wear winter wear in the heat. He argues that consideration for seasonal changes is necessary and declares with pride that he remains the continent's best alchemist. In response, Evan tells him he cannot leave the pharmacy's duties entirely to him forever and needs to draw more from his abilities. Hannah soon arrives with Bingsu, prompting Evan to ask if her uniform is too warm. She insists it is fine, but he points out the heat and apologizes for realizing so late, promising to request a summer version once he returns to the mansion. She thanks him as he reminds her to approach him or Mabel anytime she needs anything. Feeling moved, Bernard says he appreciates Evan taking such care of the pharmacy staff and expresses his desire to repay him. Our boy asks if he means it sincerely. The alchemist explains that although he has the knowledge, his body, skills, and mana no longer keep up. He adds that imbalance can be corrected if Evan learns directly from him, since alchemy is something anyone can study. Bernard tells our boy to come for an hour each day and fetch the training materials himself, warning him not to be so touchy about the matter. That night, a shadowy figure approaches a grand hall, where a nun seeks out the bishop and asks if he is aware of the recently opened Brothers Pharmacy. The bishop's face twists with fury as he slams his hand against the armrest, cursing the pharmacy for drastically lowering donations. In his rage, he insists that they mock the will of God with underhanded tricks, swearing that he will never allow such insults to pass unpunished. When class ends, Hannah peeks into the room and asks if Evan's lesson is finished, only to see him collapse to the floor. Bernard looks down at him and remarks that if he were not so busy, he could teach him all day. The protagonist jokes it will take 50 years at this pace, then insists he has other matters to handle and rushes out, while Bernard muses that the boy could surpass him in just 5 years. The alchemist notes that his disciple is growing stronger while also becoming better at teaching. Bernard wonders if it might still be too early for potion lessons. In passing, Hannah explains she has come because there are fewer customers, adding that the temple has been holding a free blessing event for several days. At the temple, a nun reports to the bishop that visits to Brothers Pharmacy have dropped, and he smugly says things are returning to normal. She warns it is only temporary and questions making enemies over something so reckless, but he replies that it is not about right or wrong. Bishop rants that donations have been falling ever since Brothers Pharmacy opened, blaming the Count's family for pulling in both civilians and explorers. Claiming it is all to restore the Mother Goddess's authority, he refuses to reconsider. The nun warns him not to interfere with the pharmacy since it is tied to the Count, which could cause national trouble. He brushes it off and decides he will simply avoid directly touching the Count's family. She protests that the pharmacy's workers are innocent, yet he brushes her aside again, insisting he never intended to kill them. Outraged, she yells she cannot endure this any longer. Later, the nun sits drinking at a bar, venting about the bishop's excuse of authority and how he is truly just after money. She complains the free blessing plan is meaningless and grumbles that they are the ones doing all the work. From nearby, our protagonist comments that she must enjoy meat skewers and offers to treat her. Shocked when he calls her Priestess Servina Belen, she drinks even harder, cursing the bishop. Servina grumbles drunkenly about the priesthood and the temple, even wondering if she should abandon it all to become a free priestess under the Count family. Evan turns back to her and offers her a place as a priestess affiliated with him, promising unlimited support. With hesitation, Servina admits it would be nice but says she cannot accept. When he asks why, she explains she promised herself to make the temple a better place. Evan replies that there is nothing she can do to change anything now. Servina concedes, saying she has already angered the bishop enough to be on the verge of being expelled. Evan realizes it is because she has been here since being cast out of the main body. He decides he could allow that to happen, but thinks that just as he has changed Shine and Belua's futures, he might also change hers for the better. Calling out to her, he asks why not rely on someone else if she lacks the strength to change things alone. Looking confused, she wonders what he means, and he explains they should discuss further what the true problem is and how it might be solved. Evan stands beside Dane in front of the gathered employees, warning them about a possible ambush and reassuring everyone that they will be protected. He reminds them that since they were invited to the city, their safety is the host's responsibility. Dane affirms that each worker of Brothers Pharmacy represents the Marquise family, and any harm to them is harm to the family itself. When asked, an employee wonders who would attempt such a thing. Evan replies that it is obvious, declaring that the Order of the Great's bishop is planning trouble for Brothers Pharmacy. Some question if the bishop is insane for targeting the Marquis family, while others realize that is exactly why they have become a target. One connects the recent free blessings to the scheme, claiming it was meant to disrupt their business. Our boy dismisses the reasoning, saying the cause does not matter because they already have a countermeasure prepared. In response, Bernard explains that many have been making potions alone or with leftover herbs, but the quality is not high enough to sell, at least by his standards. He suggests giving them to poor areas for emergencies, vowing to check each potion for safety, and warning that anyone who fails will not be allowed near medicinal herbs for a while. The employees cheer at the idea, but the alchemist waves it off, saying it is not for competition and will continue only while leftover potions remain. Addressing the true threat, Evan points out that working outside the pharmacy gives the temple the perfect chance to strike. Bernard counters that they can use it to expose the temple's weaknesses. Our boy agrees but stresses that they must prepare carefully so there is no room for denial. He then pulls out rolled up papers, revealing documents from an anonymous source about the temple, including a list of knights expected to take part in the ambush. He urges the group to watch them closely and capture them alive. He tells Dane to inform the other knights of the list before giving order to begin. Later, Evan announces the temple's free blessings and free potions, saying only good things are happening in Shurton. In the slums, a worker from Brothers Pharmacy shouts about free potions and urges people to get in line. Residents drink the potions and share them with children. Dine remarks that he had not known so many potions were made during training, adding that it will be enough for the entire slum. An old woman thanks the young master, saying her chest pain from the previous day has already faded. While walking, Evan listens as Dane comments on how everyone likes him, noting that acting for others naturally draws people in. The knight says things will stay fine, but suddenly a voice cuts through his earpiece, reporting that a thief has been caught breaking into a pharmacy. Guards restrain the man, and the message warns of possible intruders at other shops. Dane listens as the order to move quickly comes through, confirming and noting that the attackers have already begun. In the assessment, Evan explains that targeting people is more valuable than targeting property, predicting that the attackers will aim to harm their allies as well. He asks if Dane senses anything unusual, but before the knight can respond, his sword is drawn in one swift motion. Both turn toward the source as a hooded figure emerges, fixing their gaze on the target. Evan recognizes him instantly. It's Shadow Thief Fanto, an early-game villain known for his stealth artifact, the Shadow Cape. Dane warns of the danger. Without hesitation, Fanto declares he is following a quest to eliminate those distributing potions in the slums. He claims he does not care about noble titles, and that killing Evan would simply be coincidence. The knight's anger rises, but our boy's mind works quickly, recalling that Bishop Seteran only sends Fanto when he wants someone gone for good. He had suspected such a move, warning the pharmacy workers beforehand, but now realizes the target is not the building, it is the people. With the attacker standing before them, the real fight is about to begin, and Evan admits he had not expected Seteran to actually send Fanto. The thief reacts sharply at the recognition. When they were ambushed, Evan asked Dane if he could handle the fight alone. With the enemy unseen, the knight admits it will be difficult, though he swears to protect Evan until reinforcements arrive. Our boy decides he cannot let a guard die here and instructs Dane to close his eyes. Lunging forward, he tosses something to the ground that bursts in a bright flash, then shouts for the knight to act. Dane charges, his sword cutting across the thief's chest, and Fanto collapses. The knight hesitates about questioning him, but Evan dismisses it, saying they would not have learned anything anyway. Without pause, a large bald attacker charges with a dagger. Dane yells a warning, but Evan dodges, grabs the man's arm, and drives a punch into his torso. The knight tries to object, but he brushes it off, deciding the ambush is handled. Evan turns his attention instead to how the Marquise family will deal with those who crossed them. At the mansion, the head butler reports that the captured attacker refuses to confess anything beyond claiming Evan was a rich target to rob. Bishop Seteran's involvement cannot be proven, since he has covered his tracks well. The Knight Order claims they acted on their own. Blaming resentment over reduced temple donations, they insisted they did not know the Sheridan heir would be there that day. The Marquis remarks that everyone is underestimating his family. The butler notes that the bishop is out of his mind and suggests a formal complaint to the order would ensure such an incident never happens again. Evan's father rejects the idea, arguing that if the order truly respected them, they would never have dared to take such action. He decides it is time to display the full power of the Sheridan family. The butler then informs him that his son claims to have acquired a weapon to strike at the order. With 4 days remaining, Evan speaks with his father, explaining that in just that time they will have the means to deal a decisive blow to the bishop. The Marquis questions if this ties to his contact within the order. The young strategist confirms it does. He explains that if they wait, she will bring undeniable evidence to destroy the bishop. He adds that the bishop has been stealing donation money for himself, funds meant for the main body of the order. Evan says that Seteran also ordered the knights to ambush Brothers Pharmacy. The plan is laid out. Approach the order with an offer, pin everything on the bishop, let the Marquis family deal with him. In return, they cover the scandal to protect the order's reputation. The Marquis recognizes the chance to restore relations and gain support, while Evan points out the order will have no choice but to accept. In consideration, the Marquis pauses and asks if there is any chance the informant is lying. Evan explains she is skilled, holds a low position, and is someone he has personally met and spoken with, so she is trustworthy. His father agrees and decides to wait for the report, then addresses Mabel and Belua, acknowledging their work for his son and entrusting his care to them. Our boy protests, calling for Shine to help him. He continues to struggle, shouting to be let go as his father leaves. After 3 days, Servina tells Evan that everything gathered is for him. With so much evidence in hand, he replies that they could kill the bishop. She explains she had been collecting it all along, always planning to ruin him one day. Evan answers that if they take it to the order, they can erase him completely. She wonders aloud if he will die because of her, thinking only his family name would be ruined. Evan replies that once the bishop touched their pharmacy, he was already fated to die, and because of her, others will not. The documents, he explains, will keep the Sheridan family and the Order of the Great from clashing directly. He believes Seteran assumed the Marquis could not touch him without physical evidence, Yet in Demon War 3, the Marquis crushes the Order of the Great, concluding the man chose the wrong path. Evan tells Servina not to feel guilty and urges her to put it behind her. She says she is glad she could help, wishing him luck and promising her support. He responds that he does not want her working directly for the Marquis family. Instead, he urges her to stay within the Order. He explains if the one he supports becomes Grand Bishop, his chances of survival will improve, benefiting the Marquis family, the Dungeon City, and himself. In judgment, Seteron yells that it is slander and claims innocence as guards restrain him, but the Marquis orders him to shut up, listing his crimes against Brothers Pharmacy, Evan, and the city. He announces the imprisonment of the Knight Order connected to the bishop and declares that Satyran will be excommunicated and hanged. At his command, the man is dragged away, shouting that neither the Marquis nor the Order can do this to him. The Lord declares firmly that this is how they deal with those who disrupt the city's order and threaten the Sheridan family. Outside, he addresses the gathered citizens, proclaiming that those with power must fulfill their duties and never harm innocent lives. In the garden, Evan remarks that this should be enough. Brothers Pharmacy will now be better established, with the new bishop already in talks with the Marquis about how he can help. He notes it is only right, then asks if there is anything else to address. Shine mentions an individual appointed due to good appraisal, despite having served as the ex-bishop's secretary. At the cathedral, Servina Belen stands before the bishop, introducing herself and expressing that she looks forward to working there. Elsewhere, someone praises Brothers Pharmacy as a huge success, a truth publicly acknowledged, though rumors circulate that Evan himself was the one who devised the idea. Evan mutters that this is not how things should be, knowing he can never replace his brother. He thinks that he never thought his desperate fight to survive as an extra would lead here. When called, Mabel tells him he is very special. She adds that if he does not want to be patriarch, then she will wish for the same, since he does not have to become a Marquis just because he is special. Evan admits he had originally planned to announce it at 12 with his first inspection order, but he decides to say it now. He will not become a Marquis. Instead, he declares he will walk the path of a knight captain. Evan questions Mabel about the duties of an aristocrat. She recalls the city's governance and dungeon defense, which he confirms as correct. She guesses his ambition, and he agrees. His thoughts drift toward the Dungeon Knight Order, their mission to raid dungeons and form independent units. His mind returns to the game's past, where he failed and his brother Eric took the role. With determination, he decides he will raid dungeons himself to protect Eric. Remembering the trade manager's promise of 3 more demigods, he counts Shine, Belua, and the others, realizing he already has 7. Evan decides he will soon speak to his father about becoming a dungeon knight. When asked, Mabel brings up Shine and Belua, explaining that Shine is practicing swordsmanship while Belua has gone off on her own. As they walk, Mabel suggests he should confront Belua before she gets ideas, but he replies dryly. Mabel presses further, even asking to join his knight order herself, yet he dismisses it. Our boy reminds her she already serves as the representative of Brothers Pharmacy. While walking, he notices others moving quickly down the hall and asks what is happening. A maid explains the second lady has given birth to a baby girl, and he processes the news of a new sister. Inside, the family's attention shifts toward Miriam D., Sheeton and her daughter. With succession talks quieted, our boy realizes this benefits him, since it delays his own Dungeon Knight announcement. During a quiet moment, Mabel compares his feelings to her own wish of being his exclusive maid. Evan sits with her, unsettled despite the happy news. He admits something feels off, because in Demon War 3 there was never a Sheridan daughter. Since the family played a major role in the game's story, her absence is suspicious. He reasons that even a young daughter should have appeared at least once, meaning in the original plot she never existed. Perhaps she married and left, but that is impossible, since the game begins in 9 years. Playing out possibilities, he thinks either his actions have shifted the timeline, or she was always meant to be born, but never survived. The darker thought strikes that in the original story, she must have died. Mabel tells him not to worry, insisting he is still her number one no matter how cute the new baby might be. Evan sighs, muttering that is not what troubles him. The baby girl smiles, and Evan insists she smiled at him, while Eric argues she admired his broad shoulders. Their mother holds her close while Miriam thanks Redding for her help, though she humbly gives the credit back to her. Evan notes Miriam's position as the second wife, while the first wife already has sons and an heir. He remembers Miriam had never borne a child until now. In the game, she was a malicious figure who indirectly caused his death, yet at this moment there is no trace of hostility. The thought strikes him that her descent into villainy was tied to future events. Perhaps he could prevent it. If he changes the path, maybe he can alter the fate where she turns evil and he dies. The Marquis's second wife, Miriam D. Sheridan comes to Evan's mind. He wonders if she had truly been a villain from the beginning, or if instead she had been pushed into darkness by some incident. He suspects he already knows what that incident might be. Sitting before him, Bernard explains a grim possibility. He says that even within a noble's mansion protected by knights and priests, an infant could still die. Bernard concludes such a tragedy would most likely come from either a curse or a disease. The protagonist repeats the words quietly to himself, then suddenly slams his hands on the table, insisting that something might happen to Elizabeth. The old man calmly replies that he knows. He suggests that the Marquise's household is heavily guarded. Rather than searching within, they should look outside. While speaking, Bernard hints at having an idea, explaining that if his thought proves correct, they may not only save Elizabeth, but also many others. He proposes their first step must be to search for traces of a monster in the city. Bernard recalls a recent large reverse flow in a dungeon, one they narrowly managed to prevent this year, which makes the situation even more suspicious. Soon after, our boy spots something unusual on the ground. He calls the others over as he points to a dark stain, identifying it as orc droppings. Bernard says he had expected to find such a clue here. Dane questions if it really is orc waste and wonders if it might have been mixed into the building materials during reconstruction. Bernard notes that the color matches and assumes it was overlooked because of the rush to finish on time. When pressed, the knight asks why it should matter. He points out that if dungeon materials were truly dangerous, then the city would have already fallen long ago since weapons and artifacts also come from monsters. Bernard disagrees firmly, explaining that such items are different. He adds that what proves dangerous are fluids like blood or waste from a monster's body, since these can spread disease easily. He then asks if they have heard of dungeon sickness, a condition that weakens the whole body due to prolonged exposure to a monster habitat's environment. People with low mana training or those venturing deep into dungeon levels often catch it. Bernard presses them further, asking if they would believe him if he said such a sickness could even break out outside of dungeons. He explains that if materials from a certain dungeon region are gathered in one place, they can create an environment similar to that of the dungeon, especially in a city that has suffered a reverse flow. The density may be lower, but the sickness outside still spreads, though it dies out faster. With caution, he explains that unless someone is a very weak child, dungeon sickness has little effect. Dane repeats in shock the words, "a little kid." Bernard clarifies that the sickness itself is not fatal and has no treatment. He adds the real danger comes when someone already infected contracts another illness, which can become deadly. He warns that since the reverse flow incident happened not long ago, the possibility of such an outbreak is high. What they must do now is track the disease before it spreads, relying only on faint clues. Our hero responds decisively, ordering them to report this to the Marquis immediately so newborns can be shielded from outside contact. As he rushes away, at that moment, Servina bursts in calling for Evan. When Bernard asks who she is, the protagonist explains she is a priestess from the Order of the Great whom he trusts. She gasps that there is a huge problem, as the number of people feeling ill has skyrocketed and the priests alone cannot handle the crisis. Dane mutters that if it proves infectious, the situation could be disastrous. Evan demands her to show him the sickness. She agrees, leading them quickly into a room where patients lie on beds. Bernard inspects them closely and announces that the disease has mutated slightly, but he will still be able to create medicine for it right away. He tells Evan to summon every pharmacist from Brothers Pharmacy. Our boy declares they must stop the illness in its early phase, telling the gathered workers that he needs their help. In unity, the pharmacists call it a disaster that even God's power cannot halt. Bernard calmly replies that he already knows a treatment. He admits its qualities have shifted somewhat, yet he has already analyzed that part. Evan rallies them, reminding them that, as Grandpa said, they only need to focus on creating the cure, and the pharmacists respond with cheers. Brothers Pharmacy and the Temple throw themselves into the work. With the Marquise's support, the sick are quarantined while contaminated areas are swiftly cleansed. When calm returns, Evan thanks Bernard, while Bernard explains that the damages were minimized only because of miraculous cooperation between those in power, the pharmacists, and the Temple. He cautions him that no matter how fast they act, some losses are inevitable at the start of any outbreak. He adds that we should think instead of the countless people saved through their actions. Our boy answers with a steady yes, but a loud voice suddenly calls from outside. Mabel rushes in, panicked, and cries that Lady Liz's condition has worsened. He hurries after her, where Liz's mother clutches the baby, while the infant breathes weakly in her arms. Evan's thoughts race as he wonders why, questioning if the medicine somehow failed. The chilling realization strikes him. Could it be that the cure did not work at all? As it begins, Evan holds baby Liz in his arms while her mother asks what to do, convinced she will not make it. The protagonist refuses to give up and turns to Bernard, asking if there is another way. The old man replies, There is a medicine that can permanently boost someone's strength, but they lack the ingredients. It is a medicine so rare that even he, who cleared Demon War 0 to 4, barely knows it. Our boy realizes Liz's level is 1. He recalls that EXP goes to whoever lands the last hit. Deciding this will work, he summons a slime, planning to weaken it until near death. He uses her gloved hand to kill it, and holding the slime, he urges Liz to do it, telling her she only needs to finish it off. He holds the slime in his grip, then moves Liz's tiny gloved hand to strike. The maid and others cry out, but he presses her to push a little more while holding the monster close, and everyone encourages her. At last the slime drops to the floor, and the woman on the bed clutches the baby tightly. He whispers that it is a relief, and she echoes him. Evan's mother and father react with shock and joy, realizing Liz survived. Marquis shouts for a priest and healer, and someone remarks that Evan saved her before rushing to embrace him. Bernard rests a hand on his head, praising him and saying he did well. He calls the method unusual but effective, something only Evan could have pulled off. Mabel dashes in, hugging him fiercely while crying out. In his mind, Velfen, an infection that once devastated a country, comes to him. He remembers it from the game, wondering how the Marquis stopped it and how many lives were lost. Thoughts drift to how, without his grandfather's and brother's pharmacy, the outcome could have been far worse. Bernard tells him not to brood, working calmly as he mixes liquids, and urges him to use what he knows to help others. He adds if that still is not enough, then it is fine to give up, because if no one steps forward, the world is not worth saving. Later at the mansion, he stands holding the baby while Eric reaches toward him, calling out. Evan teases that she likes him more, and Eric decides to hug them both at once, pulling them together. Our boy shoves his brother away while still holding Liz. Their father watches, then summons him closer, saying that saving her also meant saving the city and the country. When asked if it is because of his brother, Evan meets his father's eyes and declares he will become a dungeon knight captain. During training, Eric D. Sheaton, Evan's older brother, has been working just as hard. Our protagonist knows the Marquis must already be aware, so he decides it is time to speak up. He tells his father he wants to become a dungeon knight captain. The Marquis is not surprised, suspecting it is connected to Eric. He agrees, promising full support for his son and the Knight Order, but he sets one condition. Evan can only take the role after becoming an adult. The boy agrees reluctantly, and his father advises him to start preparations now, both for the facilities and the people he will lead. He thanks the Marquis. His father warns that if preparations are not ready by 18, the permission will be revoked. Evan accepts, and the Marquis adds that he has 7 years to plan. He smiles and says he has already chosen a name. At the pharmacy, employees celebrate the end of a task, deciding to replace the smell of herbs with alcohol as they head out together. Some workers stay behind since no one else can make the needed medicine but them. Evan approaches Bernard and voices concern that one pandemic's end could make people drop their guard, insisting they must be ready to respond faster next time. The old man replies that continued work will handle that. He explains the disease's outbreak made Brothers Pharmacy well known, which will make the king see its value over the religious order. Our protagonist processes this as Bernard predicts the king will likely summon the Marquis soon. He realizes the likely request will be to spread Brothers Pharmacy across the nation. Bernard says the easiest move would be opening a capital branch, though the king might prefer relocating the original, something the Marquis would refuse. Soon after, the Marquis tells his son they are heading to the capital because the king has summoned him. Evan protests about etiquette and suggests Eric instead, but his father insists. Though he planned to visit the capital later, our boy sees this as a chance to collect hidden treasures and knowledge from Demon War 3 and 4, or even from Demon War 2 and 1. Traveling in a carriage, he sits with Shine, Belua, and the Marquis. After 2 weeks, they arrive at an estate. Evan recalls that Count Bayern's family will be ruined before Demon War 3 begins, and concludes nothing good will come from involvement with them. A man asks if such words might negatively influence the Marquis's judgment. Marquis answers that it is fine, since a father should trust his son, and even if he is wrong, the family will not be ruined. At that moment, a servant rushes in, announcing that people from the palace have arrived with an urgent summons from His Majesty, leaving father and son startled. At the palace, aristocrats are usually summoned immediately. When Evan and the Marquis greet the Emperor, he dismisses the formality, saying there is no need for manners between them. He adds that he is glad the Marquis is the same as ever. The nobleman replies that the same goes for him, as the Emperor asks if the child is the famous jewel of the Sheatons. In response, Evan stands and gives his full name, saying it is a great honor and glory to meet this land's respectable ruler. The Emperor notes that he takes after his father, calling it the greatest praise he can give. The Marquis answers that it is an honor. Their host hums and says to get to the point, wanting to reward the boy's accomplishments with Brothers Pharmacy. He remarks that the child has done well and suggests setting up a branch in the capital as well, prompting the Marquis to begin speaking on that subject. Along with adding more locations, the Emperor pledges to shield them from the Order of the Great and any opposition. When pressed, the sticking point becomes the distribution rights for the pharmacy's medicinal herbs. He wants this to remove opposition, set up branches in the capital, and guard them. The Marquis argues that his success in halting the spread of disease proves the city would benefit from a pharmacy like Sheaton's. Neither side is willing to budge, and our protagonist decides he must support his father. The Emperor then turns to him, admitting he was too eager to meet in person. Unexpectedly, he tells our boy there is a garden in the palace and that he should rest there, leaving both him and the Marquis surprised. Evan thanks him but starts to object, until the Emperor asks if someone is there and orders the second son of the Sheridan family to be guided to the garden. Guards approach, and Evan thinks he has lost his chance to support his father. One of the men says the garden is this way, and he plans to continue slime training while requesting to look around alone, which the guard allows. In the garden, he walks while a faint blue glow seeps from his hand as he feels a great amount of mana. Training alchemy has also changed his physical abilities, but he has no combat skills to use that energy except for potion making. With the mana issue solved, he focuses on reducing the size of summoned slimes. In his mind, a large one shrinks to a smaller version, since smaller slimes mean summoning 4 to 5 at once and killing them. Doubling his training speed would be amazing, since slime training is the nation's power. Abruptly, a voice asks what he is doing. Evan jolts before demanding to know who it is. His eyes lock onto a pink-haired girl standing before him, silently holding a worm in her hand. Stepping closer, she asks if he wants to touch it, and he shouts no. She studies him while circling with curiosity, then leans in and remarks that he is as pretty as the worm. He replies he has never heard that before. She insists worms are pretty, to which he answers by calling her a weird kid. With a thought, he recalls the pink-haired characters in Demon War and hesitantly asks if she is Serena. She confirms, introducing herself as Serena L. Silkline, the Emperor's youngest daughter and the cause of a major quest in Demon War 4. He recalls the Emperor suggesting he visit the palace garden, and Serena says she is 10 before asking his age. Our boy replies that he is Evan D. Sheaton, 11, and the youngest of his family. She notes he is older, then calls his name, staring at him with intense eyes. She asks about the little friends in his hand and why he is killing them. In the garden, Serena looks at Evan. She tells him the little friends in his hand are asking him to save them, then demands to know why he is harassing them. When our boy asks what she means by saving them, she replies that she cannot hear it anymore and guesses they are all dead. Our boy recalls that when the princess was kidnapped by demons in Demon War 4, she was brainwashed and ruled over by powerful monsters. He wonders if this is Serena's actual ability. Since she has lived her whole life in the safe palace, she would never have known she could tame monsters. Lying will not work, since she already saw him summon them. Evan tells her it is for his survival, that he gets stronger by killing, and if he is stronger, he can endure, before summoning a slime and killing it. Serena replies simply that he cannot die. When he asks, Serena requests that he spare one, and after confirming which one she means, he feels Mirasol's necklace glow in his hand. She explains it will not attack if released, and Evan quickly suggests they move to the fountain for safety. She agrees, and they leave the spot together. By the fountain, the protagonist channels mana into the necklace and summons a small, glowing fire slime. Serena marvels at the new type. He offers it to her, admitting he cannot control it. She eagerly accepts and calls it cute. He warns of danger, but she dismisses the concern and asks if it is truly harmless, while the slime stirs in her hand. As they speak, Evan mentions training would be difficult if all slimes behaved like this. Serena explains most cannot think, acting only on instinct to attack whatever they see, which makes them safe to kill. Surprised, he asks who told her, and she calmly replies it was Ruby, already naming the slime. She adds that she can read its thoughts, revealing their bond is a contract. Evan explains she can raise it by spending time with it, which will make it protect her. She wonders if the same can be done with a worm, but he answers it only works with monsters. Accepting this, she holds Ruby close, and back in the garden he offers to explain her ability, but she asks again if it could let her form a contract with a worm, leaving his uncertain answer hanging in the air. Later at the dining table, the Marquis relays the king's wish to arrange an engagement between Evan and the princess. He immediately refuses, while the others react at the sudden proposal. His father reassures him that he already turned down the offer, though warns the king will not give up. Evan finds it odd, questioning why the king insists when plenty of other noble families exist. The Marquis reveals it is not about titles or business, since the king personally wants the boy who founded Brothers Pharmacy and stopped the disease outbreak. That makes him all the more unwilling, worried it will expose him as just an unremarkable extra. He pleads for the king to be told he is unworthy of the princess. His father urges honesty about his feelings, and Evan hesitates, remembering Serena and Ruby. When pressed, she holds the slime and orders him to speak casually when alone, saying she likes him as much as worms. Evan tells her she is as pretty as they say, and will be beautiful when grown, though not as pretty as Belua. He admits he cannot read her personality, and finds it tiring to deal with her, preferring no involvement. When his father asks if he truly does not want the engagement, he replies that he never wants to see her again. The Marquis is relieved, saying he worried Evan might like her, since the king kept insisting they would look good together. Evan thinks His Majesty was holding him hostage to make him spend more time with the princess. The Marquis explains there is a meeting starting tomorrow for 4 days about Brothers Pharmacy. He adds that His Majesty said to bring Evan, though he adds it is fine if the boy does not go, offering to handle it so Evan can tour the capital instead. Suddenly, Serena runs in calling his name, asking him to go play together. He freezes, then turns to see her, and glances at his father, who admits his method did not work. On the street, Evan asks what such a precious person is doing outside. Serena replies it is alright because she has 2 very powerful guards. He explains he has prior engagements today so he cannot accommodate her, but she quickly counters that she will accommodate him instead. Our protagonist insists there are definitely no worms, then hesitates before telling the princess he will leave it to her imagination. Turning to Shine and Belua, he orders them to get ready. Evan also suggests they buy clothes since they will need to move around without uniforms for the next 3 days. Shine wonders if he is included, and Evan confirms, while Belua nods and promises they will prepare and return. He explains they are his treasured friends who became servants due to circumstances. He asks the princess to treat them well, and she agrees without hesitation. When pressed, Evan asks why she is here, and Serena answers that she told the king she wanted to play with brother Evan, and he allowed it. Our boy quickly asks if she mentioned yesterday's events, and she confirms, explaining she met him in the garden, and then Ruby. He panics when she casually adds that she told her father she likes him as much as worms, and that he understood. Evan immediately thinks this could lead to an engagement and, frustrated, mutters that he wanted her to be more free, not leashed. She insists she only told her father she wanted to play with him. After a long sigh, the protagonist agrees to play together, but makes her promise to keep it a secret. Serena beams and happily agrees. Later, they arrive at King Island Sigargi, where the shopkeeper greets Princess Serena warmly before noticing Evan D. Sheridan and confirming his identity. He waves off the formality and requests the finest outfits for Shine and Belua, made from the best fabrics. After checking, he confirms the clothes expand, and the shopkeeper explains they use enchanted materials that adjust to body changes. Serena tilts her head and asks why not simply buy new clothes when growing. Our boy explains that this way he can keep outfits tied to memories. She asks if wearing them truly builds memories, and when he nods, she shyly suggests something. Curious, he raises a brow, and she explains she will buy him an outfit so he can buy one for her in return. That way they can both carry outfits that hold memories. He agrees. At the fitting, Shine steps out from behind the curtains in a new outfit. Evan follows dressed in a white suit with gold details. The princess soon appears in a frilly pink dress and twirls while asking how she looks, and he replies it is pretty. He quietly asks if she plans on wearing it today. When she answers yes and wonders why, he brushes it off as nothing. Belua bows gratefully, thanking him for the beautiful outfit, while Serena gushes over Belua's beauty, exclaiming she is even prettier than a worm. The shopkeeper thanks Evan for visiting and says she enjoyed helping them pick the outfits. Our boy thanked her in return before requesting to buy another, the red twisty design garment. He asks for it to be wrapped up carefully, and though she explains it is just a size-changing piece, he insists on wrapping it tightly so it cannot be seen from outside. In truth, it is a cursed garment that summons the Kraken. Our protagonist reflects that today's main goal was to secure the magic dress outfit, part of a treasure hunt in the game to prevent his death in the future. While browsing, Evan picks through the jewelry pieces and remarks that the capital shops are far superior to theirs. Shine calls him vain, and our boy fires back just loud enough for him to hear. Shine then asks how he can afford so much, guessing the pharmacy must be thriving, while Belua adds that the Marquis gives him an allowance as well. The protagonist admits there are still more places he wants to see, but suggests they eat first. As they arrive, the group makes its way toward a large building, and Shine squints while wondering if it is a cafe rather than a mansion. The young master explains it is a renovated estate, and Shine nods while saying the place is nice, yet insisting it had better be the finest cafe in the capital since the princess is with them. Their host simply replies that what he wants is inside. Upon entering, the owner greets Serena warmly. Guests whisper among themselves while wondering if the party are foreign aristocrats, some recognizing Evan as the Sheridan's jewel. The owner offers to seat them anywhere, but Evan requests the room in the right corner of the second floor. The manager hesitates, noting that customers dislike that room and it is not used. Our boy insists, and a gold coin flips through the air into the man's hand. He hurries to have the room cleaned and set with the most luxurious cutlery and plates. When served, Evan begins with the soup, then moves to the salad and bread. He follows with the fish, leaving the meat untouched for later, before finally cutting into the steak. He instructs the others to take a piece of cake and sip Earl Grey tea. He notices Shine's unease and asks if he dislikes the food. Shine shakes his head and explains it is not the eating order, but the strange chill in the room. A realization strikes him, and he wonders if someone else is there. Belua assures him not to worry, saying the presence will not reveal itself until after they finish eating. Sure enough, the spirit of a girl rises once the table is cleared, and Evan, Shine, and Belua watch as she slowly fades. He remarks on the event's success before catching himself slipping into game terms, while Serena shoots him a curious look. Turning to address everyone, he points out the ghost's presence and explains they have just helped her move on. He recalls that the meal is part of a hidden condition. Eating all the dishes the spirit once loved grants a rare, permanent boost to existence level and skill growth for the whole party. Serena asks if the ghost left anything, and he explains it was only a harmless blessing, while Belua notes her renewed energy. Shine, still pale, asks about the spirit's fate, and the protagonist confirms she has passed on. Only then does Shine mutter if he can collapse before toppling forward. Afterward, inside the room, Belua shuts the door and reports that she has made sure no one will approach. Evan praises her, then turns to the table where an array of gems, crystals, and jewelry is spread out. With Belua and Serena beside him, our boy asks if they should begin calculating today's haul. As he counts, Evan finds 32 treasures in total, recalling with surprise that he had not expected to uncover artifacts from Demon War 1. Serena looks over the collection while Belua voices concern about leaving them. The protagonist reassures her by explaining that artifacts possess their own durability. The princess questions why such items would be sold in a jewelry shop. He picks up a glowing ring while clarifying that most people are unaware of their true nature. He explains that not all artifacts appear as such, and that some only become artifacts over time, their magic awakening gradually, while others hold potential but remain unknown if not treated properly. He adds some reveal their power only after finding an owner or being filled with mana. Serena recalls that the palace has a mage responsible for managing artifacts. He remarks that ordinary people can stare at artifacts all day without recognizing them, while doing so in a jewelry shop would only get them kicked out. Belua realizes the jeweler must have suffered a huge loss, and he agrees, noting the loss happened because the man did not recognize their true value. When Serena tries to ask him something further, he dismisses it as a business secret. When she presses, Serena asks if she can have one. Evan tells her a person should not keep asking for things, but she offers to get him something from the royal palace in return. He agrees, recognizing the value of her offer, and he promises to follow through, calling it a deal. She insists it is not a deal but a gift exchange. When he tells her to pick an artifact, she asks him to choose for her, and he selects a necklace, introducing it as Tigress Glory. Evan explains it is ideal for tamers, boosting their success rate and allowing them to create a barrier by infusing it with mana. The princess calls it perfect for her, but as soon as she wears it, the necklace glows. Our boy notices this unusual response and wonders if its properties have shifted from what he knew. Serena announces that her knowledge as a monster tamer has increased and declares the necklace suits her perfectly. Evan agrees, and she accepts his request to listen to what he wants in return. He tells her to make sure that if the item he wants is in the palace's storage, she must bring it to him, and she agrees. With a smile, she promises to bring him the item. She even jokes about taking her father's ceremonial sword, which he immediately rejects. Later, as she prepares to leave, Serena confirms she only needs to bring the item he mentioned. Evan reflects that the artifact he wants is not valuable to most, so the king should easily hand it over if she asks. Turning to Belua, he suggests choosing something for her as well, but she denies expecting anything, and points out his earlier words about making a deal with the princess. He replies that this is not a deal but simply a present, a gift he is giving her. When she looks at him, he pulls out earrings. He tells her their name is Volcanic Spirit Earrings, explaining that they increase mana recovery and amplify all flame attribute magic. Belua asks if it really is what she thinks, and he confirms, adding that they are usually paired with the Snow Mountain Spirit Earrings. She says she cannot accept it, questioning how she could have the same treasure as her young master. When he asks if she is rejecting it, she replies she is not worthy of it. Our boy insists she cannot reject him. With insistence, he places the red earrings in her palm, urging her to whine sometimes instead of bottling things up. Belua warns that releasing all her emotions toward him might cause trouble. The protagonist tells her to speak up if something bothers her, claiming he can fix problems. She agrees and puts on the earrings, thanking him, then asks him to call her Lua from now on. On the second day, Evan declares his treasure hunt for items that will protect him, and decides to leave the aristocratic streets to explore hidden shops scattered across the capital. Speaking to Shine, he remarks that they will be busy and hopes the princess leaves soon. Our boy then pauses and looks at Shine with suspicion, since his expression is unreadable. Noticing his condition, our boy asks Shine what is wrong with him. He reminds him he passed out once yesterday but seemed fine after returning to the mansion. The protagonist jokes that he looks like someone who just went through a breakup. Shine mutters that his body feels heavy. Evan wonders if he did not get the buff, explaining that his own body felt better immediately. Shine replies that he thinks he received the blessing while still feeling chilly. He adds that his body and arms remain weighed down. The young master suddenly reacts with an idea. Without hesitation, he hands over a pair of silver bracelets and tells Shine to take them for now. Shine asks if they are just bracelets, and Evan explains they are called ghost bracelets, increasing movement and attack speed by 15%. He admits he wanted to get better gear for him, but these will be fine up to the 60th floor of the dungeon. Shocked, Shine repeats the 60th floor while the protagonist explains the current dungeon team's best is only the 45th. Evan warns not to rely on the bracelets too much, since eventually Shine will need artifacts for both full defense and attack speed. Evan asks how he feels now, and his companion runs a few steps before admitting his body is faster but still feels heavy. At that instant, a dark shadow suddenly appears behind him. Evan stares in shock as he demands to know what Shine just did, but Shine brushes it off and insists it is nothing. The ghostly maid drifts closer and both scream in horror, believing she had passed on. She casually explains she thought so too and went to sleep, only to wake up next to him instead. Shine shouts for her to leave, accusing her of being the reason his body feels heavy, but she admits she already tried, and it did not work. Wondering why that could be, she teasingly asks if he is possessed, making him yell in panic. Our boy reminds her she mentioned something about looking comfy earlier. With a grin, the ghost answers that the bracelet looks comfy, saying it feels nice just to look at. She asks if she can go inside, claiming it will fix Shine's chills and heaviness. He shouts for her to get in immediately, and she happily thanks him, ignoring Evan's protests as she dives into the bracelet. The protagonist realizes this is an event he never saw before, one that never happened in Demon War 4 when the bracelet first appeared. Inside, she comments on how cozy it feels. Thinking about the name Ghost Bracelet, he realizes it might have been meant to hold a ghost from the start. He speculates this event simply never occurred in the game, meaning they just uncovered a new feature. He wonders if the bracelet became a growth-type item because of her. Shine notes it does not look any different from when he first wore it, but Evan tells him to see it as a good thing. Shine disagrees and points out the ghost is still there, though she simply says she likes it inside. A knock at the door draws their attention, and Belua and Serena step in to tell the protagonist they are ready to head outside. He keeps the day's destination a secret, telling Shine to hold off for now. Serena steps forward and hands him a box, saying it is the gift she promised before they leave. Inside is a short sword, making his eyes widen as he realizes it is the Limit Breaker. He remembers it's an item from Demon War 3 that normally requires massive contributions to the royal family to obtain. Serena curiously asks what it is, and he explains it is an item that breaks limits, though he puts off explaining further. He thinks to himself that with this he can surpass the capacity limit of artifact equipment, since for someone like him, who can still die even with multiple defensive artifacts, having a 6th artifact is necessary. Lifting the dagger, he activates it with the word limitless. Energy surges as a golden lock appears over an empty artifact slot. Chains shatter and the slot unlocks, breaking fully apart. Shine asks what just happened, and Serena observes and wonders if that is how it is used. Evan replies that it is hard to explain but notes it increases his artifact capacity. She understands before guessing he will look for more artifacts, which he confirms. As they walk, Evan seems exhausted. Serena asks why he is not buying much even after 4 hours of visiting different points. Our boy wonders if the artifact he gave her has some kind of stamina increasing feature. She then asks where they should go next, but he suggests eating first and mentions a place nearby that he knows well. Shine curiously asks about it. The young master tells him not to think much. When they arrive, the group finds themselves before a large building. Dane asks how he knows the place. The protagonist explains he has heard it is popular. Amy's Kicking is an important location in Demon War 2 and again in Demon War 3, a place where party members can be found and main events take place, even attracting the Silent Knight. Shine voices concern about alcohol being served, but Evan brushes it off by pointing out they are with guards and it is daytime. Dane says it is fine, as our boy's focus shifts to another reason for coming, the gathering of the kingdom's top mercenaries, and the captain warns the other guards to stay alert in a place full of rough types. They enter the restaurant, and Evan asks for a large table and 7 servings of the kicking special. Shine observes the place, remarking that strong people are gathered here. Our boy confirms it, saying this is where the country's strongest gather. At the table, Belua questions why they have come somewhere so dangerous. Evan admits he is here to find a treasure, though inwardly he notes it is a treasure of a person. Reassuring her about the guards, he casually calls her by her nickname, which makes Shine jolt in surprise. Serena repeats the name and asks if she can use it too, but Lua politely refuses, which makes the princess sulk while Shine and the protagonist watch from the side. Their food arrives, plates of the kicking special, and he invites everyone, guards included, to start eating. The guards thank him, Shine digs in, and Lua takes a cautious bite. Our boy scans the room and searches for familiar faces from the Demon War series. Mid-meal, someone catches his attention, and his gaze locks on a figure at the bar whose blonde hair and robe-like mantle at first suggest a priest. A second look reveals the outline of steel armor beneath. Evan remembers this as Ryan Drukas, the unbreakable shield, notorious in Demon War 4 for his near-impenetrable defense and relentless healing. Across the room, Ryan sits at the bar, and Dane's attention drifts to the same man. He confirms recognition of someone whose name carries weight among mercenaries. The captain unfolds Ryan's past, explaining that once a child praised for divine power, he chose the path of a holy knight over that of a priest. He adds that lacking the build for combat he failed, leaving only 2 options: abandon the knight's path or spend a decade before testing again. After failing, he used alcohol as a crutch. Our boy files the information away. When Serena urges him forward, he walks to the bar, his steps drawing Ryan's attention. The knight turns and stares at him, and the protagonist greets Ryan while asking to join him. Evan takes the seat beside Ryan, whose eyes widen at the name. He stands and questions why someone of such status would sit with him. Our boy wonders why a man aiming for the title of Holy Knight Captain is drinking here. Ryan slams down his drink and recalls the vow made upon receiving his blessing: to become a holy knight, fight in war, and earn greater favor from God. In confession, Ryan explains he is a student of a fallen aristocrat from abroad. He informs that he was born with high mana but no aptitude for magic, urged instead toward priesthood. While trying to protect someone, he received a blessing and changed his goal to becoming a holy knight. Despite training, none of the countless weapons suited him. He admits he is not only bad with weapons but terrible at combat, earning disapproval from all his instructors. Everyone told him to give up, yet he refused, insisting that the power given by God was meant for protecting others, not for casting healing spells from the backlines. Curious, our protagonist suddenly asks what the power was called. Ryan replies it is the Guardian's blessing, a gift only given to those willing to sacrifice themselves. He explains that his blessing forces enemies to attack him instead of his allies, and though it is always active, he says that it grows stronger when he uses the Holy Knight's divine shout. Evan acknowledges it as the perfect ability for someone meant to protect others. Ryan agrees, but then laments that he was never given the strength to fight, wondering how he became so pathetic. Our boy presses him on how he saved people when he received the blessing, reminding him it is for protection, not combat. Ryan admits he used his power to lure monsters after him, running until he was far enough away. He thinks it pitiful. Evan disagrees with him and says that it is awesome. He insists that while skilled fighters fighting is normal, it takes real courage for someone who cannot fight to step forward. Though doubtful, Ryan listens as our boy calls him a hero for protecting others, knowing his blessing was not for combat. Ryan admits no one has ever told him that before. Our protagonist hopes he will now declare he can become a great holy knight. When asked if he feels better, Ryan admits he does, at least somewhat. Evan tells him he can become a great holy knight, and says he believes it. In reply, Ryan shakes his head and explains it no longer matters to him, leaving Evan shocked. Ryan clarifies that he no longer cares about the opinions of others, since listening to Evan has helped him make up his mind. From now on, he will focus on what he truly wants to do, vowing to protect others no matter what anyone says. Our boy thinks it turned out better than expected. With resolve, Evan steps forward and reintroduces himself as Evan D. Sheridan, second son of Marquis Solane D. Sheridan, ruler of Dungeon City Sheridan. Ryan introduces himself as a descendant of the Drukas family that once stopped the dragon breath, Ryan Drukas. He thanks Evan for listening, saying he gained the courage to move forward because of him. Evan reflects that God must have had his reasons for granting Ryan such a blessing. At last, our boy explains the Marquis position will not go to him, and when he becomes an adult, he will create his own Knight Order. Extending his hand, he says he wants to hire Ryan into his future Night Order. He is someone who has the power to protect others, and more importantly, the will to protect others. He asks him to work together to protect their city. Ryan replies that it is an undeserved position and such honorable work. He adds if Evan is offering it knowing his shortcomings, then he intends to give it his best. The two shake hands, and our protagonist tells him he is now a part of his Night Order. As chests burst open, gold, jewels, and artifacts spill across the room. Marquis demands to know what is going on. Evan explains he stumbled upon it by luck on the way back and plans to use it to fund his Night Order. He then introduces Ryan to his father, explaining he found him in the capital. Ryan formally states his name along with his intention to serve as a dungeon knight alongside him in the coming days. The request follows as he asks Marquis to use the artifacts to help free his friend from the Order of the Great. Marquis laughs and says he already prepared the money for Ryan. With that, all business in the capital is finished. He adds that Evan obtains various artifacts, increases the capacity for equipped ones, and employs Ryan Drukas into the Night Order. Outside, the princess says she wishes Evan could live with her, adding that her father would let her go out any time if it were with him. He replies that he must return to the dungeon city and probably will not come back to the capital. She answers that it sounds like they will never meet again. He confirms they will not, since Marquis rejects the engagement proposal, but she insists she will see him again. Evan warns her not to say such things, reminding her that someone as precious as her should not be wandering around. He explains that the world is dangerous, so she must become strong to survive and protect herself. She takes his words as motivation and declares she will grow strong enough to visit him and even join his Night Order. Our protagonist sighs before telling her to do as she wishes if she can truly become strong enough. She responds that she will, and before parting she asks that the next time they meet he calls her by a pet name Ray. On the road, the carriages travel away from the capital. Ryan remarks that danger will come in their master's way. Shine agrees and clarifies that multiple dangers will be waiting. Ryan compares his ability to read the secrets of the world to a rare gift and reflects that such threats must be the cost of it. Shine only sighs and agrees, adding that protecting their master's life takes priority over the dungeon city, since there would be no Night Order without him. Ryan vows to raise his sword any time to protect him, but Evan points out he is bad with a sword. Ryan admits he forgot that lack of skill in his courage. Our boy clarifies that he only meant Ryan is bad at combat, not useless. With certainty, he reminds him that his true talent lies in protecting, and that God did not bless him for no reason. Ryan asks how he can protect someone when he cannot fight, and the answer comes simply, he does not need a sword to protect, only the weapon that fits his talent. Ryan realizes and asks if he means a shield. Evan confirms, explaining that the day Ryan went up against that monster, he had already found his combat method. Our protagonist says he redirects enemies' focus onto himself and brings them down while keeping others safe. He then asks what more he would need than that. He questions Ryan about ignoring past events, and he admits it was out of embarrassment, though the idea sounds plausible. Evan notes that a group could make it work, and says Ryan's talent is ideal for coordinated battle, leaving Ryan to call his own past stubbornness pathetic. Ryan admits wielding a weapon is not always the answer. While looking at our boy, he says the experience is now a proud memory. He vows to train with a shield, explaining that if he can use it to protect others, he wants to fight alongside a group in battle. Our protagonist tells him to focus on defense and leave the attacking to others. He imagines their alliance with Shine as the Unbreakable Shield, Raihan the Silent Knight, and Belua the Blood Witch, united as one formidable group. When asked, Ryan wonders if Evan intends to fight as well. He thinks the Knight Captain's position would make his participation obvious. Shine questions if such risk is necessary, as Belua tells the captain there is no need for him to fight at all. He thanks her, and explains he is required to enter the dungeon, assuring them he will support the team without direct combat. He reminds them that he has been studying alchemy under Bernard. Ryan reacts with surprise at such high-level training still existing. Evan explains he is simply lucky to have met a skilled teacher, promising to support from the rear, while Shine and Belua vow to keep him safe. As they arrive, the carriages enter Stema, a hot springs town. Shine admits he has never been to a hot spring before, while Belua confesses the same. Ryan says he has never visited one either, and it is also Evan's first time in this life. Marquis wonders if our boy can handle the hot water, but he answers that the hotter it is, the better it is for the body. He refuses to miss the chance while returning from the capital. Marquis remarks that hot springs do not care about status, unlike humans, but adds they still care about gender. He tells Belua she will have to go to the women's side, which makes her react sharply as she tells Shine to be quiet. At the inn, the group arrives and our boy steps inside, finding Shine and Ryan unpacking in their room. He asks if they are finished. Shine wonders why he is there, recalling he was supposed to visit the hot spring with the Marquis, but Evan replies he chose to rest first. Shine then asks if they will visit a dungeon nearby, guessing that is why the captain stayed back. Evan denies it, reminding him he is not strong enough for that yet. Shine presses him on why he even mentioned it, and Evan says they will get to go eventually. Ryan explains there are only 3 dungeons in the world large enough to have a city built around them: Silk Line's Sheeton, Magic Kingdom Mana Road's Farati, and Commerce Nation Baypika's Murden. Other than those, there are many small and medium-sized dungeons, but only the great ones in dungeon cities bless humans who clear them to level up. When asked, Shine wonders about the dungeon here. Evan explains it is blocked off for many people since its difficulty is high, though it is entered regularly for cleanup so monsters do not appear in the town. Artifacts may form, or a part of the dungeon itself might turn into an artifact. Shine asks if they are going to get a mansion or something. Our boy declares he is going to bring back a hot spring and make a new one in their city. Inside the hot spring, Shine stands at the edge with Evan while asking if the steaming water is really a hot spring and saying he will die if he goes in. Our boy tells him to look at the people already inside, even their father, but Shine protests that he is a demigod and weaker. Evan grabs his towel and tells him if he is going to die here, then just die, as he kicks him straight into the water. The demigod splashes in, yelling and thrashing. As he settles, he mutters about the heat until suddenly relaxing, then admits it feels great, and our protagonist agrees. As they soak, Shine asks if it is really healing. Evan explains it is far better than normal healing magic, which only removes muscle aches, since this hot spring heals injuries and strengthens muscles beyond their previous state. Ryan praises him for knowing this and remarks that it is why knights in the past trained long-term in stemma. Shine leans closer and quietly wonders if the spring's effects could boost skill proficiency after training. Evan smiles and turns back, asking his opinion on whether he wants a hot spring now, and Shine eagerly agrees. Later, the 3 step out in matching blue outfits. Evan notes the clothes are the same as in the game. People once complained they looked too Japanese, so they were changed to a general East Asian style. He muses that the culture is not based on Earth as he wonders about the outfit's origin. Ryan remarks that they look like his homeland's traditional clothing and suggests the town's founders might be from the same origin. Evan is surprised knowing that someone actually knows where the clothing comes from. Soon after, Lua arrives and asks how he found the hot springs, and he answers. Belua walks in and moves toward him just as a white-haired boy bursts forward. He pushes closer and boasts about his worth, declaring himself Krovan Farati, son of the Grand Duke. Evan recalls him as the only NPC in the game to introduce himself without prompting, an important side character and the eldest of a famous royal family. When confronted, Crow angrily demands to know who said his full name, only to freeze when he sees Marquis Solane D. Sheridan. He quickly apologizes, insisting the girl did nothing wrong. He claims that he only asked questions because of her beauty. Our protagonist remembers that he later becomes a skilled mage swordsman and decides it is better to let his father handle things than risk embarrassing himself. At that moment, Marquis acknowledges Belua's beauty, but grips Crow's shoulder and demands to know if he touched her, which he denies. Belua apologizes for the mess. Evan reassures her with a soft word and calls her pretty, earning a thankful smile. Finally, Marquis introduces Evan as his second son, prompting Crow's surprise as our boy politely greets him by bowing and introducing himself as the second son of the Sheridan family. Crow then asks if Belua is someone he personally keeps. Evan confirms he hired her himself before asking if Crow still has business with her. The youth admits he does, calling her the prettiest girl he has ever seen. He turns to the Marquis to boldly ask permission to challenge Evan to a duel for Belua. When it begins, Krovan Farati points at Evan and challenges him to a duel for Belua. Our boy wonders if this man is stuck in the Middle Ages. Marquis Sheridan calls it amusing, saying Crow is a real man. As the challenger begins to speak, Marquis cuts him off before changing his mind, permitting it, and telling his son to do it. The protagonist shouts in disbelief and wonders why his father said that. He clears his throat and refuses, saying Belua is not something to be claimed and they cannot fight over her. At once, Crow changes his offer by suggesting she be freed if he wins. Then he will ask if she wants to work for him. Evan realizes he had not thought of that and agrees, deciding to respect her choice as well. Marquis steps in and bans weapons and mana, allowing only hand-to-hand combat, which Crow accepts confidently. Marquis signals for them to start immediately, then whispers for his son to go easy, reminding him Crow is not a knight captain. As the duel starts, Evan steps forward to face his challenger. He agrees on the condition that neither of them holds a grudge afterward, and Crow accepts without hesitation. Our protagonist slams his foot against the floor and settles into a stance while Ryan, Belua, and Shine watch intently. The challenger flares a blue aura as he pushes forward, accelerating and closing the gap in a burst of speed. Evan decides to dodge and test his reaction. When the strike misses, he slips aside, spots an opening, and lands a blow that sends Crow flying backward in a burst, leaving him unmoving on the floor. In disbelief, Evan comments on the outcome, and Shine explains it happened because he actually hit him. Still unconvinced, our boy presses for clarity until Shine provides an explanation, and Marcus declares him the winner. Afterward, the protagonist recalls Crow's background, remembering his training in both magic and swordsmanship from an early age, a combination that should have made him a stronger opponent. He reasons the weakness comes from focusing on magic over combat. He laughs as he remarks it was fortunate mana was not allowed. Marquis insists his win is simply due to being stronger, but Evan downplays it, claiming Crow is likely better at magic, and that is why the duel ended quickly. His humility draws praise from his father. Nearby, Ryan and Shine note his lack of self-awareness, while Belua steps forward to compliment his performance. She offers him a handkerchief and explains she brought it to wipe sweat, though the fight ended too quickly for that. Evan thanks her, and across the room, Ryan's healing magic stirs Crow back to consciousness. It prompted him to spring up, which earns praise from the protagonist for Ryan's skill. After the duel, Crow admits defeat. Evan tells him it was an amazing move while explaining he only won because of the many restrictions and a stroke of luck. The boy agrees, yet insists he was not giving it his all, declaring he wants another duel someday without holding back. Our protagonist refuses and says he has no reason to fight him again. Still, Crow insists he does and vows to return once he has confidence in his strength. In reflection, Evan admits he risked his life by accepting the challenge and ended up tangled deeper than intended, since he never planned to get involved with the Ferrati family. Shine offers to handle Crow if he causes trouble again. He tells Evan not to waste his time, and our boy praises him for the thought. At that moment, Marcus notices Melthor's presence and decides it is proper to greet him. He tells the group to rest while asking his son to join. Evan complains, but his father insists and reminds him that as an aristocrat, he must socialize and cooperate with others to protect the world. The kid understands but dreads dealing with the Ferratis. When they meet, Melthor greets Marquise warmly, and Marquise replies that he is in good health before complimenting Mrs. Ferrati on her beauty. She thanks him graciously, then shifts her gaze to our protagonist and remarks on how handsome he has become while asking if he remembers her. He answers politely that he faintly does. He begins to greet her properly, but she insists he call her Mrs. Ferrati. Marquis notes that Evan's eyes resemble his own, as Mrs. Ferrati recalls his age before realizing he is the same as their daughter Alicia, calling the girl forward. As Alicia approaches, she greets the Marquis politely, and our boy remembers she never directly killed him yet was always the root cause. Marquis compliments her looks, and she thanks him. Melthor turns to Marquis and asks if he recalls their promise. With a grin, he replies that the eldest must lead the family, so he is not bound to it. He adds that he remembers the plan was to unite their second or third children, and Melthor laughs while teasing the kid for acting shy. During introductions, Alicia formally presents herself, and Evan responds hesitantly with his full name, exchanging formal greetings. He recognizes her as Alicia von Ferrati, his betrothed. She resides in Sheridan because of the engagement, later meeting the Dungeon City's protagonist and betraying her fiancé by supporting him massively. All this eventually led to the fiancé's despair and suicide, making her the greatest cause of his deaths. He admits his own faults for mingling with other women despite being engaged, but if events follow the game, Alicia will become his death flag. The parents admire how good the two look together, calling it fate. Later that evening, Marquis asks how the hot springs were, and Evan admits he loved them. He adds that he finds the waters dangerously tempting as he remembers a route where he dies from staying in too long. When his father suggests another soak after dinner, he agrees, but adds that they should build one in their own city as well. When the idea is raised, Evan's father admits that having hot springs in their city would be great. He explains that creating one requires the right environment, which makes it nearly impossible. While hot water can be produced, a true hot spring with special benefits cannot be achieved with only that. Our boy admits his father is right and asks about how geography changes when dungeons form, pressing for the reason. Marquis recognizes his interest and explains that when objects powerful enough to influence the environment exist, or when a monster of immense strength is present, a dungeon naturally forms. A powerful mage who has fully mastered their abilities can also alter the environment to form a dungeon, though the exact workings remain difficult to understand. Evan asks if a hot spring could be created instead, using a powerful enough item. His father considers the possibility, noting it might work if the item shares properties with a hot spring, though the formation time would be uncertain. Evan explains that having a healing hot spring in their city would greatly boost dungeon raid efficiency for explorers, and is suspicious of his intent. Marquis asks if he already has an idea. At night, workers dig under Evan's watchful gaze, and one asks if this is truly the right spot. He confirms while explaining that something valuable lies buried near the dungeon. They question the rumor's source, but before finishing, Ryan calls out and claims to have found something. From inside the pit, they reveal a large stone slab. After a month away, Evan returns, and talk quickly shifts to his sudden bathhouse business idea. His father assigns Eric to listen closely as he explains the plan. He emphasizes that location is everything, since the bathhouse should be near the dungeon. He adds that it should not too be far from the pharmacy and directly on the main road. Large space is necessary since they cannot open multiple small branches, so the hot spring must be big, while the entrance fee will be set high to match its size and appeal. In discussion, Marquis remarks that if the brothers' pharmacy is targeted at peasants, then the brothers' bathhouse is aimed at explorers. Evan insists the hot spring's effects are worth the price, since being healed allows them to return to the dungeon sooner. Eric adds that it would help develop the dungeon city further, calling it a perfect business plan. He wonders how the temple will react since the hot spring has healing effects. Our protagonist replies that they are on good terms with the temple and the priests will come too. Privately, he thinks it will be more popular than Stima's hot springs in Demon War 3. With a healing hot spring nearby, he can survive easier, and he mentions that they also have Mr. Bernard to raise the medicinal efficiency of the water. As Bernard steps in, he tells Evan to move his hand. He admits he had wondered what Evan was doing in the capital, and complains that he came back with a hot spring. He asks if it is the stone slab, and our boy answers yes. He promotes Bernard to explain that this is a part of the dungeon core, strong enough to change environments, but unable to create a dungeon. Evan agrees and says he cannot be the only one to use such good water, and asking Bernard if he likes hot springs. Eric remarks that it is expected since Bernard has created cures for diseases. The alchemist examines the slab and concludes it is impossible to change it. He adds that it will serve as the origin of the hot spring, boosting its effects. He tells Evan the rest can be handled through alchemy and medical botany. With conviction, Bernard declares they will make a better hot spring than Stima's. He asks to use it for free for himself and the brothers' pharmacy, and Evan agrees. He then turns to his father and asks for land near the bathhouse to establish a dungeon knight's training facility. Marquis asks why, as Evan explains that the knights can train and then go straight to the bath. Marquis claims it is a great idea. Our boy thinks the hot spring will make the knight stronger and raise his survival chances. Bernard tells him they should get started right away and asks him to help too, and Evan responds eagerly. At the construction site, workers haul timber and hammer at the framework, while Evan guides positions and adjustments. Two men carry a beam past a marked column etched with a magic seal. Inside, Bernard examines the mana-powered machine and warns that the stone's output cannot sustain the entire setup. Our protagonist adds that the goal is a fully functional facility from the start. Bernard stresses the importance of a solid foundation, then cuts in again to insist the current setup will not work. He adds that an extra artifact is needed alongside the mana stone. He explains the need for a mana aggregate, one that can endlessly produce mana and sustain the facility's core. He declares they will need at least 5. In response, our boy quickly identifies it as the mana tank process, surprising him. Bernard admits it would boost efficiency, but laments trading away his old artifacts. Evan asks about their whereabouts, prompting the man to admit they are gone, and the youth produces several artifacts from his own collection. He announces that they can use what he brought from the capital. Bernard eyes them suspiciously and wonders if he raided palace storage. Our protagonist replies that he took them from across the city, most from a jeweler. At last, the alchemist nods that they will work, and our boy offers to help, seeing the task as perfect alchemy training. Later in the training yard, the knight captain approaches Evan. He reminds him not to neglect combat practice, stressing this is the age where growth matters most. Evan acknowledges him, but the knight brings up the report about a duel with the Ferrati family's son. He notes that the young master has already made a name for himself in martial arts, and warns that more challengers will now seek him out. Evan waves it off and insists he did nothing special, but the knight is certain otherwise and offers to teach a dungeon-learned skill to protect his reputation. Without delay, he reveals it is a martial arts move meant to dominate the battlefield, Heaven's Weight. Before his eyes, Evan watches energy gather in the captain's fist as his body becomes wrapped in a swirling, heavy aura. He explains the skill's purpose, to infuse each movement with immense weight. He says the young master can use it with greater efficiency. Our boy questions if the skill can even be taught, but the captain ignores him and charges forward, forcing him into a frantic defense. Afterward, our protagonist collapses on a desk until Mabel enters and announces it is time for etiquette lessons. He asks for a moment to recover, but she brings up that Shine got a bracelet and Belua got earrings while she got nothing. He insists he did not forget, only could not find the right time. Evan produces a necklace while telling her to always wear it as the mascot of Brothers Pharmacy and as proof she acts in his place. She smiles brightly and clutches it while vowing to treasure it forever, and though he downplays it, she only laughs. In the days that follow, etiquette lessons fill his mornings. Alchemy training at the Brothers Bathhouse site takes his afternoons, and Heaven's Weight practice with the Knight Captain consumes his free time as he continues his slime training. The small creatures float in his hands, and Evan grins proudly to see 4 appear at once, though his mana drains quickly. He collapses onto the grass, then forces himself back up. He admits he must hurry, for the brothers' bathhouse is almost complete. During training, the Knight Captain orders Evan to strike harder and put more weight into his fist. He does as he is told, as the captain praises him. He explains that heaviness is the key to Heaven's Weight, since once he grows accustomed to it, he will be able to infuse mana into his punches for even greater force. Calling him a combat genius, the captain admits he was not even sure the skill could be taught. Our boy complains that uncertainty is no excuse, and Belua steps in with a towel, which he accepts with thanks. On this day, the brothers' bathhouse officially opens. While the Marquis points out the design, our protagonist notes how Stemma's style leaned heavily oriental. He explains his choice to give the place a more Western design. Shine notices a strange device that catches his attention. When they approach the vending machine, Evan explains how it works by inserting a silver coin, choosing a drink, pressing the button, and receiving it. He demonstrates by picking coffee milk, which drops into the tray, and Shine tries it for himself. As he continues, he describes the build, mentioning space-expanding artifacts and cooling magic powering the custom vending machines in both changing rooms. Bernard recalls how troublesome the project was to assemble and tune. He warns that the taste had better match the hype, but Evan remains confident and promises satisfaction. Shine compares the heat to Stemma's famed springs. He explains they used a giant artifact for the bathtubs to boost the hot spring water's effects and purify it. Bernard adds that herb concentrate is regularly mixed into the water to enhance it further. He also points out that the vending machine was the protagonist's idea. Marquis declares it will be a hit, while Shine asks if Belua and the other women will like it, as Ryan replies that they will. Bernard turns and wonders if Evan is content. Our boy answers that it will definitely sell, though the old alchemist remarks that there is only one problem, which makes Evan ask what it is. At that moment, Mabel appears at the entrance. The crowd shouts that 1 silver coin is enough for a full meal. Some yell that no one will come if it is that expensive and call it nonsense. As protests rise, an explorer insists the entrance fees should be lowered. Another says they should just not go, and more agree while chanting they will not go. Seeing the people enrage, Mabel calls Evan, but he assures her it is fine. She greets a customer who drops a bag of coins on the counter, and Evan explains there are explorers in the city who spend a gold coin to travel between the 30th floor of the dungeon. He adds if they try the bathhouse and pay 20 silver coins, the results will speak for themselves. Inside the bath, an explorer mutters that it is insane, while one feels his energy recover quickly from the fresh herbs. Another man says it feels like his soul is being purified and declares it worth every coin. A big man stands in the steaming water. He orders others to inform the guild that anyone not bathing in the brothers' bathhouse before dungeon exploration will not be allowed to go. Evan thinks that efficiency is much higher this way. In the bathhouse, one man cups water in his hand while calling it a miracle. Another declares that God must have made it to cleanse their souls. Evan thinks people will eventually have to admit the brothers' bathhouse is worth paying 20 silver coins. He adds that once rumors spread, even explorers who consider the price too high will still come at least once. Our boy explains that the bathhouse does more than ease fatigue. He explains that it restores the body's fundamentals and makes dungeon expeditions safer. Evan emphasizes how it speeds up growth while pointing out the gap that will soon form between those who use it and those who do not, with non-users inevitably eliminated. 2 explorers relax in the water while praising the facility. One man calls it amazing and remarks that 20 silver coins might not even cover the cost, while another declares it a blessing. At the dungeon entrance, the guild leader asks if everyone has visited the brothers' bathhouse, prompting the group to shout back that they have. Fired up to reach the 40th floor and catch the frontliners, the Yellow Drake Guild charges ahead. From a distance, bystanders murmur about wanting to go too. One explains that nobles and commoners alike use it before raids, thanking the Marquise's policy. Others also vow to visit once they are stronger. Evan watches as veteran explorers raid more efficiently thanks to the bathhouse. Newbies are also training harder while dreaming of trying it someday. With the entry fee and exclusive drinks only adding to its allure, entering becomes a privilege reserved for high-ranking explorers. Later, the Marquis reviews papers. He notes that everything proceeds exactly as Evan planned, with profits soaring. He realizes that the pure profits from the bathhouse exceed those of all four brothers' pharmacy branches combined. For frontline explorers, it is great. He considers it even more suited to lower-floor adventurers and slum citizens who cannot afford priestly help. Since the pharmacy caters to a different crowd, the difference in profits is natural. He also sees that the money poured into the bathhouse also far surpasses what was spent on the pharmacies. The Marquis explains that the cost must come from his own pocket, recalling the vassal's outrage. A heated meeting takes place in Marquis' office, where a guy slams the desk in fury. He says they were not allowed to invest, accusing bias since the project belonged to Evan. He insists on loyalty, but demands answers, only to be told to calm down. Marquis clarifies he never invested in the bathhouse and that it accepts funds only when short on resources. Mention of pharmacy profits follows, revealing Evan contributed both skill and personal funds. The man leans back stunned, admitting he never imagined it. Evan muses that some vassals are far too obsessed with money. At that moment, he gestures toward Randolph as an example of greed. Marquis declares the bathhouse Evan's alone, untouchable by others. He says greed always follows the scent of coins, yet he praises the boy's progress. Though with an apologetic sigh, he admits Evan may be carrying too much too soon. Our protagonist reassures him that it is fine, privately reminding himself that every move he makes is to avoid death. Afterward, he works on pricing adjustments and unveils his next plan, a special membership system ranked by contributions to dungeon raids. He lays out the tiered cards and explains how higher ranks will push people to work harder, strengthening both the bathhouse and the city. Mabel remarks it could motivate citizens, and Evan agrees. He also adds that it will forge a city less reliant on a single chosen hero. Finally, Mabel admits she does not fully understand, but insists he is already invaluable. She says that she cannot imagine the city without him, and calls him someone the Dungeon City needs. He refuses to let himself die or watch the city fall, knowing a world bound to one hero risks disaster. Evan vows to change it by building an order where the city thrives on its own, securing not only its survival, but his own. Inside the pharmacy, Evan presents potions, gems, and ingots, announcing them as the results of his alchemy lesson. Bernard inspects a gem while acknowledging his improvement. Our boy jokingly suggests he should handle closing duties at the pharmacy. Bernard stays silent but retorts sharply, while Hannah listens nearby. Outside, the old alchemist dismisses the employees with praise for their work. Two workers invite him to the bathhouse, which he readily accepts. Hannah then invites the protagonist as well, and he agrees to join. At the bathhouse, he is greeted by two men. They are already soaking, and confirm they have just finished training. Shine explains he is caught up on all the lessons missed during his time in the capital. Evan turns to Ryan, who admits he is still behind but learning much from Shine. The swordsman adds that he still has plenty to learn from the Holy Knight's training. Ryan explains he has built strength but lacks formal weapons training. In response, the young master tells him not to dwell on it, assuring him he is simply progressing differently. He adds that Ryan only needs to make up for what he lacks, pointing out the versatility of shield arts. The trainee realizes what he means. The alchemist confirms that he will begin shield training tomorrow, with everything already prepared. As he walks away, a familiar voice calls to him. He sees Servina and Hannah, both greeting him after a long time apart. He greets Servina and asks if she visits often, which she confirms. He acknowledges the hot springs benefits, but warns her that drinking beer will cancel them out. She then asks about his guard, and Ryan introduces himself formally. He explains that he is training to be worthy of standing beside his master. Hannah mentions she works at the pharmacy, while Servina shares that she is at the temple. Later, in a training yard, our boy presents a large shield he found in storage. Ryan thanks him, declaring that he will protect him with this shield from now on. Our protagonist shakes his head and tells him no, explaining that the shield is not that great. He adds he is only giving it for training, warning him never to use it in real situations. Ryan protests that he should have been told earlier. Evan adds they would both end up dead if he tried to use it for protection. When asked what he means, Evan asks Ryan if he has ever heard of a cursed item, which makes Ryan react. Evan explains that cursed artifacts exist, items that can weaken their owners. When Ryan wonders if the shield is one of them, he shakes his head. Evan says that sometimes perfectly fine artifacts are mistaken for cursed ones and discarded. He adds that this shield is different, and though he knows its true value from the game, our boy also admits that in real life judging artifacts is far less certain. Ryan presses and questions him for its real power. Evan replies that if it blocks an attack with Echo Shield, the enemy feels it twice as hard. At once, Ryan blurts out that it sounds like a cursed item. Evan clarifies that blocking one strike counts as blocking two, doubling shield skill proficiency. On top of that, efficiency rises fourfold if Ryan wears the Ironwall Knight's full plate armor while training. He adds that a certain necklace multiplies it eightfold, though Evan tells him not to overthink it and just get the feel. The shield, the armor, and the necklace are bugged items, distorted by some unknown influence. When urged to try it, at first Ryan looks lost. Then he suddenly roars and charges, blocking incoming blows with the shield. Evan notes he is adapting quickly, but warns he is bleeding at the side, telling him to heal as he fights. Golden light wraps Ryan as he chants to the battle god, his wounds knitting closed. Still, he holds his ground while the green aura on his shield grows brighter. Evan presses forward, his own body wrapped in swirling energy. Meanwhile, the necklace that should drain its wearer's mana to summon countless wind arrows instead fires them straight at Ryan. Oddly consuming barely any mana and being growth type, it will strengthen with him. The armor is just as strange, flagged by a coding error as a shield instead of armor. It sat in storage rather than being scrapped. Worn alone, it leaks damage, but if the user stands braced as though holding a shield, it functions like one. Paired with an actual shield, it is as if two are raised at once, doubling block potential. Together with Echo Shield, their combined effect magnifies training efficiency. It blocks the summoned arrows, creates the perfect regimen for shield arts. Satisfied, Evan steps back and lets Ryan train on his own. He then turns to Shine and says that it is time for proper instruction. Shine quickly realizes this will not be ordinary dagger drills. Evan reminds him that after 2 years of experience, he is already honed enough to fight knights. Shine snaps that those battles were not by choice since the knights cornered him from behind when he was training alone. Even so, Evan points out it sharpened his divine sight and combat sense. Shine mutters about the butler's transcendent sight skill. The young master admits that at first he only wanted his friends to survive the dungeons, but now they have grown strong enough to enter one. Though Shine knows he has not yet reached the strength he needs. During training, Shine admits he is still not strong enough, and Evan agrees. He says that is how it is for a demigod. Our boy draws one of his twin blades and explains it is a skill he learned with them, calling it Bloody Shadow. He explains the more blood coats the daggers, the faster his movements become, and it even restores stamina. Evan replies that it is a fitting skill for someone who specializes in fighting multiple opponents. He adds that it is a technique that improves with experience and becomes even more powerful over time. Our protagonist insists it can only develop through real battle, but the alchemist counters. He tells him to simply get blood on the blades instead. Shine wonders if he is being told to kill people. Evan quickly clarifies and produces several bottles filled with red liquid. At that moment, the boy asks if it is truly blood, and Evan confirms while explaining it is monster blood. He adds it is mostly from goblins, with each bottle containing blood from different creatures. Bloody Shadow boosts physical abilities but strains the body. It makes it dangerous to train with as a child. He had originally planned for Shine to gain dungeon experience first. Now he believes the demigod has grown stronger than expected. The youth agrees and credits certain local facilities that help replenish stamina, saying he can train the skill faster than anticipated. Evan explains further, saying that training is not about how much blood coats the blades. He adds that it is about how many different types are applied within a set time, alongside how much movement occurs in that span. It makes Shine realize why so many kinds were prepared. The young master instructs him to coat the daggers in a specific order. He explains that running 100 meters back and forth after each application is the most efficient training method. The Shine stands there shocked, admitting he is worried he will be mistaken for something dangerous. Evan asks if he would rather stick with his current training, and faced with the choice, Shine panics before quickly agreeing to follow the new method. Meanwhile, our boy begins to think of Belua, who always leaves after finishing her duties. She says that she is going to work on her lamp training, though he senses she definitely has a secret. Evan never asked before since he assumed it was nothing bad, but now that they must enter the dungeon together, he feels the need to confirm her progress, and resolves to uncover the truth. 2 hours later, he searches everywhere she might slip into alone, yet finds nothing. He thinks that she would not hide somewhere easy if she truly had something to conceal. A voice calls out, and Madame Miriam stands nearby holding Liz and flanked by maids. She notices Evan rushing around and asks what he is looking for. He greets her politely until she waits for his reply. He apologizes for being busy and asks if she has seen Belua. He explains he has urgent business with the girl, but cannot find her anywhere. The lady seems surprised and asks if he still does not know that Redine has been teaching Belua tea ceremonies, flower arrangements, and manners. Evan reacts in shock, questioning why his mother would teach her such things. Miriam answers, it is because she considers the girl a potential mistress for him, and is training her to be suitable. He shouts in disbelief, protesting that he does not even have a wife and that the child is only 9. Miriam points out it is wrong to take a maid as a mistress. The idea is impossible since the thought of taking in the blood-eyed witch as a mistress is something he refuses. In reflection, our protagonist thinks about how it has been 3 years since he last joined his mother for tea. He realizes Belua's skills have been growing unusually fast. Perhaps a special skill is developing through training with his mother, similar to how the butler or head maid gained theirs. In this world, consistent training over months often turns into a skill, while mastery follows through persistent effort. While enduring the lessons of noble etiquette, Belua's mana abilities have unexpectedly grown, but dismisses the thought with disbelief. He heads straight for the door and knocks firmly while announcing himself. His mother appears with the girl standing behind her. Evan addresses Radine directly, asking why she hid the fact that she is a mage. She meets his stare while acknowledging that he has discovered the truth. Across from his mother, Evan demands to know why she has hidden her identity, questioning if his father is aware. Radine admits he does not know for certain, but has likely guessed. She explains that the Sheridan family is infamous for lacking magical talent. He adds that, however, Eric turned out to be very good at it. In response, the protagonist agrees to answer and lists 4 reasons. First, the tea she and Belua were drinking was ephoronic. Second, the notebook by the teacups, an artifact designed to encrypt what is written inside. Third, an old lamp that still glows faintly after being turned off. It all proves that she had been using it right before he arrived. Fourth, Belua's rapid growth could not come from lamp training alone. He says that it means his mother had been personally teaching her. Radine remarks on his ability to gauge others' progress, and observes that he has secrets of his own. He adds one more point by saying that while his father has been aging, she has not. At that moment, she steps forward and tells him to listen closely. She insists that she only looks young, making sure he understands. When he replies in agreement, she asks if he knows about witches. He recalls that they are what people call women who are mages, and she says she is glad he does not know more. Our boy listens as Radine explains the nature of witches. He realizes she refers to a hidden species rather than a profession, describing them as female demi-humans whose abilities are inherited through bloodline, blessed with abundant mana and exceptional control. She mentions an ancient tale in which God created them and hid them among humans to protect the world, though she admits little knowledge beyond that, and he processes the comparison by likening them to demigods. Meanwhile, Radine says she traveled the world while hiding her identity until she fell in love with his father. After their marriage, she stopped involving herself in worldly affairs and chose to live as a normal human named Radine D. Sheaton. In his thoughts, Evan recalls playing every Demon War game and DLC in his past life. He knows almost everything but never the full picture since he was not a developer. He notes that never once did the games mention witches as demi-humans. He wonders how such critical information could be missing, then realizes one possible explanation: the sequel. That would explain everything, since unless Earth was destroyed, it was normal for a new game in the series to be released, though he never expected to find himself inside it. Radine explains further, saying that no new witch was born between her and his father. She admits Evan carries a bit of witch blood, since he is not a woman. She believes the adverse effect is his lack of magical talent. She recalls discovering Belua, a child with the potential to become a witch. While our protagonist knows Belua is a demigod and wonders if demi-humans, witches, and demigods are connected, Evan thinks she will gain powers she never had in Demon War 3. Finally, Radine says that is why they are in this situation. She asks if her explanation is enough, and though he agrees somewhat, she praises his smarts before asking for his own secrets, pointing out that it is unfair to keep them after learning hers. He realizes Demon War 5 might exist but has no information about it. He thinks it is safer to share his secret with his mother, who is connected to the sequel. He decides to plan ahead without adding death flags, and our boy begins to explain while recalling a dream. Across the manor grounds, Evan walks while servants whisper about him. They comment on his habits and training routines, until in the garden he faces Shine. Shine tries again by spinning a funny story about the gardener that nearly cracks his composure. The young master calls this Immortality Project No. 5 Poker Face, a mission to hide his emotions in any situation, though he admits he has not practiced much. A few days earlier, Belua had told him that his smile truly makes others feel happy. Yet he tripped then and smashed a cup as tea spilled until she rushed to his side. In that moment, he remembered something crucial. His 12th birthday and formal debut were close at hand. He admits that if he smiled at everyone, the death flags would skyrocket. Evan refuses Shine's suggestion to stop training, reminding him an aristocrat's 12th birthday is not a joke. The butler recalls how extravagant young Master Eric's party had been, filled with foreign nobles and guild masters. Our protagonist notes that such events mean many women will attend, which he sees as a problem. He He insists a poker face is necessary to avoid unwanted trouble. Shine questions his fear and suggests women could simply be friends like Mabel or Belua, but Evan dismisses the idea. At that moment, Belua interrupts with a letter from the palace. He freezes when reading the words and shouts in disbelief at receiving a letter from the crown. Belua explains the Marquise reviewed it before sending her. Hoping it is not from the one he fears most, he presses her for reassurance. She says she cannot give it, and the message reveals the king will attend his birthday. The Marquis roars about rejecting the king's proposal yet still being pressed. Evan's mother warns him not to underestimate her, saying their second son is special, though the Marquis counters that the king will not get his way since Evan will announce his intent to become Dungeon Knight captain at his birthday. Shine reacts with surprise, but the young master insists that is the point. Our boy believes the king's real aim is arranging a marriage with the princess. He thinks by taking the knight's role he will cut off the chance, vowing to crush this death flag. Inside the estate, staff prepare frantically as he checks with Mabel about arrangements. She explains everything is being redone since the king announced his visit. He suggests shifting attention away from the royal guest, but she insists the young master should remain the main focus. She hands him the stage plan, as he scans it while asking if it is genuine, and Mabel nods. That makes his eyes light up as he realizes all the cute girls are coming to his birthday party. Earlier, Evan questions the popular female minstrels arranged to perform at his party. Mabel grins while explaining they are simply girls eager to meet aristocrats. She explains that she promised them a meeting and his autograph, which they accepted instantly. Our protagonist glares in frustration and accuses her of selling him out without consent. He adds to his death flags, and as he reviews the plans, he points out the many fixes still needed. Despite Mabel's protests about him involving himself in his own party, he instructs her to have the performers play a few quiet songs. Evan steps back once the king arrives, while also proposing to split the celebration into two parts, one for the king and the other for real fun, so the guests of honor may leave early. Later, the boy stands before his employees to invite everyone to his birthday party. He assures them that both the main and satellite locations will remain open. Some hesitate because they fear disrupting the prestige, but he insists otherwise. He adds that they must wear brothers' pharmacy uniforms so their status is made clear. Hannah hesitates at the uniform rule, yet he reminds her it is necessary with aristocrats present. Evan explains that even Servina must wear her priestess attire, though he offers to prepare her a dress for the second part when the important guests are gone. Turning to the older man, he offers a suit as well, but Grandpa refuses. He says he does not want attention while the king is there, but Evan tempts him by mentioning the cute girls. Bernard asks if they are really that pretty, and our boy confirms they are. He adds they are the prettiest of the silk line and famous even in other kingdoms. Grandpa agrees, though he warns he will leave immediately if bothered. Afterward, our protagonist visits the butcher. He asks him to cook for the party, but the man panics at preparing food for so many important guests. The chef slams his hands down and scolds the young master for his nonsense. Evan explains that only someone truly skilled would use that herb in cooking. He praises the man's unique talent while urging him to showcase it at the birthday party. He guarantees that aristocrats will love it, which gradually convinces the hesitant cook. Evan further explains the appeal of cooking fresh over open flames. The chef finally agrees and vows to do his best, while Evan promises to handle the rest. At the estate, Shine arrives carrying stacked boxes and explains they are addressed to him. Evan nods since he ordered uniforms for Shine, Belua, and the other demigod kids who work under him. He declares they had to wear these uniforms at the party. Shine hesitates and asks if that means apart from the others. Our boy answers plainly that yes, they are his trainees now and candidates for the night order he intends to form. Outside, servants shout for everyone to hurry as time runs short. One confirms to Evan that the security is perfect, while Belua reminds them it must be flawless since His Majesty will attend. He asks if the chefs hired for the day were properly vetted. Mabel calls out for him to leave it and get his makeup done, promising she will handle it. Someone points out the famous cute girls. Another wonders how they were invited. A voice comments that the young master must have skilled people around him. Hannah asks if it is truly okay for them to be present. Barnard replies that no one dares to touch the brothers' pharmacy at the party hosted by the Marquis. She asks if he was an aristocrat, and he warns that pretending to be one brings punishment worse than death. He tells her to watch her mouth before asking for a drink. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, Mabel says everyone in the hall is talking about him and praising him. Shine adds that many are also discussing the dungeon, making Evan ask what they are saying. The knight explains that no raid has gone past the 45th floor since the Great Change, though before explorers reached the 50th. Mabel hesitantly asks if he really plans to go after his birthday, and he confidently confirms. He admits that he will enter but only clear up to the 5th floor, leaving them both stunned. Shine warns that if the young master wants to fight the floor master, the Marquis will be terrified. Evan admits his original plan was to go to the 10th floor. Shine explains that the floor master guards every 5 levels. He adds that no 12-year-old has beaten the 5th floor's floor master. If the Marquis discovered the 10th floor plan, he might ground him. Evan says that is why he will stop at the 5th floor with the Night Order and Vice Captain Shine's support. The man blinks and asks who the Vice Captain is. Evan declares he will leave the training to him from now on, calling him Vice Captain. Shine asks if he is joking, but the headmaid arrives to announce it is done, and our boy thanks her. Before leaving, he asks the headmaid to keep what they just heard a secret. She agrees, while Evan says it is time to greet everyone in the party hall. Inside, a man notices the Ferrati family enter. Bernard calls a white-haired girl a pretty child, prompting Hannah to explain she is Alicia von Ferrati. Crow looks for Belua and wonders if Alicia will enter with Evan, while the girl grips her face in sickness. Her father says he will take her to Evan when he arrives and asks her to hold on longer. Crow wonders how much stronger Evan has become, smirking that Evan was strong enough to be considered his rival. Alicia mutters that he is lying, while he insists he is telling the truth. At that moment, Marquis Sheridan and his wife enter the hall. Someone wonders about the Marquis's second wife, while another replies she must be tending to the newborn. The Marquis steps forward and thanks everyone for coming. On stage, he addresses the guests, recalling when his first son turned 12. Marquis then announces they now celebrate his second son reaching the same age as he prepares to introduce Evan. Backstage, Belua rushes in with an urgent message from the main gate, leaving the young master puzzled. Across the hall, guests turn toward the opposite side of the stage as a golden staff strikes the floor with force. The Emperor enters with Princess Serena following close behind. He arrives earlier than expected, while Evan realizes the king has come. Inside the hall, the Emperor steps forward flanked by armored guards with Princess Serena walking just behind. The Marquis approaches to question the early arrival. He also reminds him the event has not yet started. The ruler responds and accepts the invitation to enter as the Marquis guides him further inside while walking beside him. At the stage, the Marquis raises his voice to draw the room's attention. He steps forward with arms wide to congratulate his son on his 12th birthday. Evan thanks him and vows to honor the family name by serving the citizens with his utmost effort. Yet the Marquis narrows his gaze and asks what his son intends to do to bring such honor. Our boy pauses briefly before declaring his intention to form the Dungeon Knight Order. He proclaims himself as its captain and vows to protect the city. Someone recall the order being disbanded decades ago, while others question why he must lead it himself. In response, the Emperor raises his hand to signal silence. He asks why Evan made this decision, if the attention was too much, and if the choice is too rash. Marquis steps in to explain that our boy is not running away, but chose the dungeon. He asks Evan to confirm, as he answers yes. Evan tells the king he is prepared to take on the duties as Dungeon Knight Captain. He explains he has already been gathering members while pointing to Shine, Ryan, and Belua. Some whisper he should not enter the dungeon until he is 18. Our protagonist declares he will prove his determination by entering the dungeon with Shine, Ryan, and Belua. He adds he'll go there with the goal of bringing back the head of the 5th floor's floormaster. At that moment, his father reacts in shock. Marquis points out that he is still 6 years from adulthood and the captain position. Evan acknowledges this while insisting it is necessary to gain the people's trust and prove his determination. Before the Marquis can respond, Michael steps forward and states he can vouch for him. Shine, Ryan, and Belua, and the crowd recognizes him as Michael D. Erlach, captain of the Iron Wall Knights. He explains that he has trained with them for years and believes they are strong enough to stand alongside the other knights, assuring the gathering that they possess both the skill and talent to handle the 5th floor. Across the hall, the Marquis protests with anger. He says that a knight captain would endorse his young son entering the dungeon. Michael proposes a duel with the knights to prove their strength while leaving the decision to the Marquis. The king, intrigued, orders our boy to prove himself immediately. Evan accepts as the knights step forward until the two groups face each other in the center of the hall. Michael declares the rules of the match by allowing both sword and magic. He raises his hand and signals the start while ordering the duel to begin. The announcer declares the match between the 3 knights and Shine, Belua, and Ryan. He allows both sword and magic, and at his signal, the duel begins. The knights charge forward while the trio braces for impact. Ryan stands tall and summons his skill guardian's blessing. Their swords suddenly jerk uncontrollably until he blocks and counters to send 2 staggering back. Shine darts in with blinding speed to slash before his opponent can react. Though one braces to counter, they find their feet frozen to the floor as Belua gathers a blazing fireball and launches it. It prompts the announcer to step in while calling for a stop and declaring the duel over. He names Ryan and his teammates as the winners. A man observes the shield choice by noting that a tanker like him would be valuable in any situation. The man also recognizes the skill of the others. The king calls the duel and wonders aloud if this is the hidden power of the Sheridan. Marquis stands there, worrying about their overwhelming strength. The king thinks Evan proves himself fit to be a leader for putting the three together as a team. Yet he questions Evan's own abilities, which makes our boy turn to the Knight Captain for help. The princess cheers for him from the crowd, as he tells himself that running now could ruin his chances of entering the dungeon. Michael steps forward and declares himself his opponent. Spectators comment on the choice by noting his suitability to ensure Evan's safety. The knights whisper they will die if they fight the young master, and Alicia watches with interest as the duel begins. Under the method of combat, the young master and Michael face each other in fighting stances. The signal is given and both launch forward at high speed. Michael closes the distance instantly to force Evan back until he braces and counters, though the challenger drives a knee into his side before they exchange rapid strikes. Bernard denies the idea of an artifact and insists it is pure strength. Our protagonist's movements are sharp and refined with precise strikes that overpower his opponent. Bernard explains them by saying that although an artifact might enhance potential, such techniques must still be learned. Mr. Ferrati exclaims at the advanced combat skill and marvels that he has mastered it at his age. When Alicia is asked if she likes him, she replies without hesitation. When the suggestion of an engagement is raised, she pauses before agreeing if he accepts. She says it would be interesting, while her father promises to pull strings, so her proposal will not be refused. Our boy shifts and leaves an opening. Michael lunges in, but in a swift counter, Evan slams him to the floor and locks him down. After that, the referee calls the match, and Michael D. Urlaka is declared the winner. Ryan kneels and asks if the protagonist disputes the outcome, but he admits defeat. Michael praises the duel while remarking on the noticeable improvement. He advises him to pay more attention to his body to grow faster. At last, they clasp hands and end the bout on good terms. From the crowd, Mr. Ferrati envies Marquis for having such skilled children. He claims even the eldest Eric is great, yet now another talented son stands out. Mr. Ferrati notes the Sheridan family's prospects will likely rise thanks to Evan. He then questions Crow if he is truly an equal rival. Crow stiffens and admits the boy has grown much stronger since their last meeting, even suspecting that he now lags behind. In the center, Michael turns to the crowd and declares Evan's performance proof of his skill. The king sighs, and the Marquis says he needn't choose such a hard path. After a pause, he concedes by setting a limit that Evan may challenge only up to the 5th floor. He also warns that the 6th floor is too dangerous. Evan promises to clear it and returns safely, while in his head he thinks this isn't his only chance. He plans to push for the 10th floor on his next birthday. Ferrati raises a glass and tells him to forget complex matters and enjoy his 12th birthday. He agrees, but Dane takes the glass while insisting no alcohol. Serena walks up smiling and says she came to keep her promise. Evan freezes when she appears before him, since she announces she's stronger now because of his advice. Serena says that she wants to join the Dungeon Knight Order. Alicia steps in and casually remarks that it's a coincidence because she also wants to join. Evan shouts in disbelief at her too, realizing the 2 death flags he thought were gone have returned. Shine approaches and reports that the king, the Marquis, Count Ferrati, and the other nobles have stepped away to talk. Evan tells the crowd they'll adjust the stage and change the mood. He calls for the cute girls to play, and the group starts performing, while Hannah asks Ryan for a dance and he agrees. Servina rushes in. Upset that she's late after changing, the protagonist tells her to ask for the next dance. Serena suddenly declares she wants to dance with Evan. With no time, she grabs his hand and pulls him away. Evan dances with Serena as she comments on his popularity. She mentions she didn't expect another aristocrat to be interested in his Dungeon Knight Order. He explains Alicia is the daughter of the Magic Kingdom's Dungeon City Ferrati. He confirms that he has only met her once. Serena dismisses the concern, praises his dancing, and excitedly asks for another round. Before he can refuse, the surrounding guests erupt in loud cheers that draw his attention. The guy from the butcher shop carries skewers out. Some recognize it as Brothers Skewers, while others speculate about the Sheridan family hiring them. Though the skewers raise concerns about being made from monster meat and possible poisoning, Evan smirks while Serena takes a bite and declares it delicious. The princess stares at the skewers before taking a bite. She's shouting that it's delicious while insisting Evan she wants it in the castle as well. Evan explains it's monster meat, which makes her hesitate as she wonders if eating it is wrong. Yet he quickly reassures her that it's safe because the Marquis family guarantees it. The nobles nearby order multiple skewers while townsfolk also step forward. The cook signals Evan that it's a great success, just as the young master predicted. The protagonist smirks while noting that anything goes as long as it tastes good. A voice calls from behind, and when he turns, he instantly recognizes Genian of the Thunderbird Guild. He remarks on how rare it is for someone outside dungeon explorers to appreciate monster meat while calling him impressive. Evan recalls him as the leader of that small but elite guild. Genian insists they're simply short on members, which Evan waves aside. The man adds that their group is known only among insiders, while others remain unaware. The protagonist cuts him off by ordering 2 more skewers to show he isn't interested in recruitment. Genian presses again by vowing he won't hand Ryan over, although Evan takes a bite without concern. Genian warns that he can't handle so many talented allies alone before leaving mid-conversation. Ruby steps up and quietly points out how curtly he dismissed the guildmaster. Soon a red-haired girl approaches with a man who introduces himself as Alan, guildmaster of Wandering Paradise. She says she would have greeted him earlier if she had known he'd entered their sphere. The protagonist recalls the guild's reputation for fierce loyalty and protecting the dungeon city no matter the foe. Aloha von Serve of the Phoenix Guild appears with Mira, vice of Heartshield. She explains their master stayed behind unwell. He remembers Aloha as the Ice Witch who once fought with Heartshield's tanks. Then Vlad von Salta of Evergreen and Selene Annis of Megamine step forward in turn. Daisy tilts her head curiously and asks about his combat technique. Evan replies that Knight Captain Michael once received a dungeon blessing, learned it, and passed it to him. She presses further, asking if he really fights monsters only with techniques and warning it's reckless. He admits combat skills aren't effective inside the dungeon. He claims that he uses them only for self-defense while researching new methods to support the Night Order, which he intends to test in the field. Alan notes the depth of his study. Aloha meets his gaze and asks if he seeks the dungeon's end. He replies firmly that the Dungeon Night Order was created to shield the city. Its purpose is already clear with no need for another. He adds that clearing sections to grow stronger and protect the people is enough. Daisy blinks with surprise at his lack of ambition, and he dismisses the idea of reaching the dungeon's end. He says that there's no point if it costs one's life, after which a man nearby chuckles that at least the protagonist values survival. A cloaked figure steps out from the crowd. The hood falls back to reveal Prince Damien. Evan blurts out the name in shock. Evan says it's a relief as a young man steps forward. He notes that at the very least, Evan knows how to value his life. People recognize him as Prince Damien L. Silk Line. Evan greets him formally, calling it an honor to meet him. Damien remarks it doesn't seem like he feels honored and explains he came to give an order. He tells Evan to protect his younger sister as he values his own life from now on. Evan lifts his hand and refuses. The prince questions how he can reject so easily and asks if he dislikes Serena. Evan replies that this isn't the place to discuss personal preferences. He adds that he will become captain of the Dungeon Night Order. He explains a wife of the captain must remain confined to the dungeon city, and without that resolve, she cannot be his spouse. He claims that because of this, taking the princess as a bride would be difficult. Immediately, Serena declares her intent to join the Dungeon Night Order with him. Damien demands to know if Evan planted the idea, but he denies it quickly. The prince draws his sword and orders a duel, declaring that if Evan loses, he must take Serena as his bride. Evan protests, but Damien insists, pointing out he cannot refuse a prince's command twice. The blade now gleams in his hand, an incompatible weapon that reduces his power. Evan accepts the duel on the condition that if he wins, the prince will never make request of him again. Damien agrees and orders a guard to lend Evan a weapon, but the offer is refused. Instead, Evan relies on his martial art, Heaven's Weight, a technique designed to protect the body from the claws and teeth of dungeon beasts. He prepares to fight unarmed, while the prince remains determined to humble him. The duel begins as they face each other, one armed with a sword, the other barehanded. Damien calls out his name and charges. Evan strikes with a single punch, and the royal collapses to the ground unconscious. The match ends almost instantly, making Evan wonder how one hit was enough. Could an incompatible weapon really weaken him that much? Michael steps in and explains that the heavy aura from the punch still lingers. He adds that a trait of Heaven's Weight likely causes an internal injury. Evan insists he barely grazed him. Michael replies that his skill is impressive, even if the first prince seems to be on the weaker side. The victor approaches Damien and tells him he isn't compatible with the sword. He suggests he try something better suited, maybe a hammer. The prince questions the suggestion and asks why not a spear instead. Evan urges him to choose a weapon that matches his build, warning that forcing the wrong one will only hurt him. Damien hesitates but listens as Evan explains a sword's worth depends entirely on its wielder. The prince considers this silently, then agrees to keep it in mind before leaving. Meanwhile, Serena insists on staying with Evan, and he allows it for the day. She asks to dance again, but he declines, saying they've danced enough. Alicia steps forward and invites him instead, as Serena waves, securing a promise for another dance. Alicia comments on his popularity, then admits it's unpleasant but no longer important. She reveals her intention to be engaged to him. While dancing, Alicia announces she will soon be engaged to him. Evan denies the possibility, insisting his father would refuse, but she counters. She explains that her own father will push for it, and hinting that this is why he followed them earlier. He recalls seeing their fathers together, and starts to realize it may have been about his engagement. Evan protests, arguing it's uncommon for someone like him to be chosen, yet she replies that she's already agreed. Panic builds as he demands to know why. Alicia leans in, saying he acts as if he knows everything in the world, yet he's afraid of her. Our boy reminds himself this is only their second meeting. He wishes he had completed his poker face training, silently cursing Shine. Alicia adds that she finds it amusing and wants to see how long he stays afraid of her, deciding to remain by his side. He calls the situation dangerous and decides to avoid the party altogether. All he wants now is to slip away. Evan tries to leave, but another girl intercepts and invites him to dance. Soon, more to step forward. First Servina, then Hannah, and soon a small crowd forms, each waiting their turn. Nearby, Shine and Ryan watch. One comments on his popularity, while the other shrugs it off as expected for their young master. Shine suggests Belua join in as well and wonders if he should speak for her. She refuses sharply and says that pressing him first from her side would be too much. Shine reminds her today is different. Belua replies that simply being near him is special to her, and from now on, she'll value every single day. Suddenly, Shine calls out to the young master. He turns and hears that a lady wants to be escorted by him. While pointing at Belua, Shine asks how long he plans to keep her waiting. Our boy apologizes, explaining he wasn't paying attention. As he watches her, he wonders if she's angry. Kneeling before Belua, he addresses her as "my lady" and asks if she'll do him the honor of letting him escort her tonight. She starts to protest, saying she wouldn't dare. Evan tells her to forget such trivial things for today and repeats his request. Pointing at him, she declares she would gladly. Everyone watches in awe. Crow mutters about wanting to become Evan and win Belua's heart, but Alicia tells him to stop dreaming. Belua turns to the boy, calling him a noble figure at the center of the world, though he insists he's just an aristocrat from the outskirts. Later, the Marquis meets his son and informs him that all engagements have been blocked for now. The young master praises his father's decision. They both share a laugh until His father remarks that the king would never hand the princess over to a dungeon knight. His father clarifies it's not just any knight, but a dungeon knight captain. He explains they were able to decline and maintain their stance. Our boy concludes that the issue with Princess Serena is resolved. Marquis adds that even if the king runs out of cards, he won't stop and warns him to be careful. Evan quietly hopes someone better appears for the princess soon. His father shifts the subject. He says that while things lean toward the better, Count Ferrati's daughter has made a decision. Evan listens as the Marquis explains that the Count wants her placed in the Dungeon Knight squad as a reserve member. Hearing this makes the boy scream in frustration. The Marquis continues, saying that if she suffers there for a while, she might eventually become a real member. He doesn't need to explain what that means, and there's no escaping now. He points out the growing military strength of the dungeon city, something that can't be ignored. Marquis also mentions the fancy clothes given to children under the guise of reserve roles. He challenges his son, after coming this far, will he abandon them? Then, he changes tone and says it's time to know the real reason, asking why his son is so afraid of women. After a pause, our boy admits he fears keeping someone close who can't be controlled. He claims that he's worried he'll be hurt by hidden intentions and asks if that makes him foolish. The Marquis denies it, saying he isn't stupid but just unusually mature for his age. He warns that avoiding people entirely isn't the solution. Adding even failed efforts will help him grow, though he understands and respects his son's intentions. Marquis explains that true learning only comes from direct experience, and even failure is part of that. He urges him to reflect on both himself and others, using each outcome to improve. Evan agrees. He admits his real motive is to avoid girls in order to prevent the deadly scenarios he remembers. Finally, the Marquis congratulates him on turning 12. Evan surveys the supplies laid out before him. He inspects the boxes of blue-capped potions and concluding the amount is sufficient. As he finishes, Bernard approaches and asks why he hasn't rested. Evan to explain that something came up the night before and that he plans to sleep now. Before he can move, a blue glow pulses from his chest. He draws out Mirasol's necklace, which now shines brightly as it begins to shift shape. At that moment, the door bursts open and Princess Serena rushes in. Though Evan recalls his father's warning from the previous day, she's already in his room, announcing that a child is about to be born. She claims it for herself as she steps closer, insisting the child is ready to be summoned. Evan glances at the glowing necklace in his hand, beginning to understand what it might signify. Serena, holding the red slime ruby, explains it overheard something about the new arrival. He warns her not to enter like that again, and she agrees, though her focus remains fixed on the summoning. Evan turns his attention to the necklace as light bursts from the pendant and the ritual begins. Energy spirals outward, forming a small blue shape that reveals itself as an ice slime. He notes that it has come of its own accord, and Serena extends her hands to receive it. The creature settles into her grasp, and she thanks it for being born, naming it Lucy and placing it beside Ruby. The following morning, Evan meets Bernard, presents a tray of bright red orbs, introducing them as battle beads. Bernard reacts with surprise. Evan explains that since his gloves nullify weapon abilities, he claims that crafting a standard weapon would be pointless. Instead, the orbs hit hard, enhanced by the glove's reinforcement effect. It provides both range and safety, while alchemical reinforcement will continue to strengthen them over time, making them ideal for his use. Bernard urges him to rely on them if things turn dangerous. Outside, the others wait as the group gathers to depart. Evan spots his father among them and greets him. The man expresses surprise that Evan is heading into the dungeon so soon and asks if he's certain. Evan assures him he's prepared. Though his father hesitates, his mother voices her support. After a pause, the man relents and tells Evan to be careful. He nods in agreement. Turning to face the others, Evan sees Ryan, Belua, and Shine already in position.